The security guard's hand clamped down on her shoulder like a vice. "I said don't move." His voice carried across the parking lot, loud enough that heads turned. Emily Harper didn't resist. She stood perfectly still beside her decade-old sedan, hands visible, breathing steady. The crowd gathering near the hospital entrance whispered and stared. Some recorded on their phones. A woman in scrubs, her scrubs, the same pale blue she'd worn for 3 years, reduced to a spectacle under the fluorescent glow of the parking lot lights. No one knew what they were looking at. Not the guard, not the officers now approaching with hands on their belts, not the hospital staff watching from the sliding doors. They saw a tired nurse at the end of a double shift. They didn't see the operator who'd spent 6 years in places that didn't exist on any map. If you want to see how far a story like this can travel, how a quiet woman in a parking lot becomes the center of a crisis no one saw coming, then stay with me until the very end. Like this video, comment with the city you're watching from. Let's see how far the truth can spread. The night had started the way most of Emily's shifts ended. Quiet, methodical, unremarkable. She'd clocked out at Redwood Valley Medical Center just after 11, her badge swinging from a lanyard as she walked through the employee exit. The air outside was cool, carrying the faint smell of asphalt and distant rain. She reached her car, a silver Toyota with a dent in the rear bumper, and fumbled for her keys. That's when the security guard appeared. "Ma'am, can I see some ID?" Emily looked up. The guard was young, maybe mid-20s, with a name tag that read Brennan. His hand rested on his radio. She'd seen him before, usually posted near the main entrance. Never spoken to him. "I work here," she said simply, holding up her hospital badge. Brennan squinted at it under the lot's lighting. "This your vehicle?" "Yes." "Registration and insurance." Emily blinked. "Is there a problem?" "Just need to verify ownership." His tone had shifted, colder. She noticed movement near the hospital entrance, 2 uniformed officers stepping out into the night. Brennan must have radioed them before approaching her. She opened her car door slowly, leaning in to retrieve the documents from the glove compartment. When she straightened, the 2 officers were already beside Brennan. One was older, graying at the temples with a weathered face. The other looked fresh out of the academy. "Evening," the older officer said. His name tag read Dalton. He didn't wait for her response. "We've had reports of suspicious activity in this area. You mind stepping away from the vehicle?" Emily's pulse didn't spike. She'd been in worse situations with far less friendly people. "I just finished my shift. I'm heading home." "Step away from the vehicle," Dalton repeated. His hand moved to his belt, fingers brushing the cuffs hanging there. She complied, stood with her hands at her sides. The younger officer circled her car, peering through the windows with a flashlight. Inside the hospital, faces pressed against the glass. Some of the night staff, a few patients in wheelchairs near the waiting area, watching. "You got anything illegal in there?" the younger officer asked. "No." "Mind if we search it?" "I do mind, actually." Emily kept her voice even. "Unless you have probable cause." Dalton's jaw tightened. "Probable cause? You're parked in a lot where we've had multiple vehicle break-ins this month. That's probable cause enough." It wasn't. She knew that. They knew that. But she also knew how this played out when you pushed back too hard. So she said nothing. The younger officer opened her driver's side door anyway. "Hey." Emily started forward. Dalton moved fast. His hand shot out, gripping her upper arm. "I said step back." "You don't have permission to search my car." "We don't need it." Dalton's grip tightened. "You're acting suspicious, resisting." "I'm not resisting anything." But the damage was done. The crowd outside this hospital entrance had grown. Phones were up now, recording. Emily could see the glow of screens, the tiny red dots of active cameras. She recognized a few faces, Marie from the ER, David from radiology. None of them moved. None of them spoke. The younger officer emerged from her car holding a small black case. "Got something." Emily's stomach dropped. That case held her old military field kit, surgical tools, compact trauma supplies, nothing illegal, but plenty that would look suspicious to someone who didn't know what they were looking at. Dalton let go of her arm and took the case, unzipped it. Inside were scalpels, suture kits, hemostatic agents in unmarked vials. His eyes narrowed. "What the hell is this?" "Medical supplies," Emily said carefully. I'm a nurse. These aren't hospital issue. No, they're mine. From where? She hesitated. I used to work in field medicine, private contractor. It was close enough to the truth, close enough to avoid classified territory. But Dalton wasn't buying it. Field medicine, he repeated slowly, with unmarked vials and military-grade instruments. He turned to the younger officer. Call it in. Possible narcotics possession. Those aren't narcotics, Mark. Turn around, hands behind your back. Emily's breath caught. You're arresting me? Detaining you pending investigation. Dalton's hand went to his cuffs. You're not cooperating. You've got suspicious materials, and you're getting real defensive real fast. The metal clicked around her wrists, cold, tight. She didn't fight it, didn't pull away, just stood there as Dalton guided her toward the patrol car parked near the entrance. The crowd parted slightly. She could hear murmurs. Isn't that Emily? What did she do? Must have been dealing or something. Marie from the ER stood near the front, arms crossed. Emily caught her eye, waited for something, a protest, a defense, anything. Marie looked away. They put her in the back of the patrol car. The door slammed shut. Through the window, Emily watched Brennan bag her medical kit like evidence. Dalton was on his radio, talking fast. The younger officer stood by her car, hand on his weapon, as if she'd left a bomb inside. She leaned back against the seat, breathed, counted. This wasn't the worst thing that had happened to her. Not even close. Inside the hospital, the night shift continued. Dr. Raymond Kessler stood near the ER nurses' station, scrolling through patient charts on a tablet. He'd seen the commotion outside, saw Emily being detained, and felt a brief flicker of concern, but only brief. Emily Harper was quiet, kept to herself. Competent enough, but unremarkable. If she'd gotten herself into trouble, that was her problem. Dr. Kessler? A nurse appeared beside him, breathless. We've got an incoming trauma. ETA, 2 minutes. Kessler glanced up. Details? Male, mid-40s, found unresponsive at a downtown hotel. Possible overdose. Paramedics are struggling to stabilize. He sighed. Another overdose. Third one this week. Prep Trauma Bay 2. Get me a tox screen ready. The ambulance arrived with sirens blaring. Paramedics wheeled in a man strapped to a gurney, his face pale and slick with sweat. His chest heaved irregularly. One of the paramedics was manually bagging him, forcing air into his lungs. Vitals are all over the place, the lead paramedic said as they transferred the patient. Heart rate spiking, BP crashing, pupils blown. We tried naloxone, no response. Kessler moved in, checking the man's eyes with a pen light, fixed and dilated. Airway? Secured. Start a saline drip. I want a full panel. CBC, metabolic cardiac enzymes, tox screen. He turned to the nearest nurse. And get me an attending, now. The ER erupted into controlled chaos. Nurses moved with practiced efficiency. Machines beeped and whirred. Kessler worked methodically, inserting lines, ordering tests, barking instructions. But something was off. The man's symptoms didn't match a standard overdose. The tremors were too rhythmic, the sweating too severe, and his breathing, shallow, rapid, uneven, felt wrong. Tox screen's negative for opioids, a nurse called out. Kessler frowned. Run it again, broader panel. Minutes passed. The man's condition worsened. His skin took on a grayish tint. His muscles began to spasm violently, hard enough that restraints were needed to keep him on the table. What the hell is this? Kessler muttered. One of the residents leaned in. Could be serotonin syndrome? Doesn't present like this. Organophosphate poisoning? No salivation, no meiosis. Kessler stepped back, pulling off his gloves. I don't know what this is. What? Outside in the parking lot, Emily sat in the patrol car and watched the ambulance pull up. She couldn't see inside the ER from this angle, but she could read the body language of the paramedics as they rushed the gurney through the doors. Fast, urgent, uncontrolled. Her instincts kicked in. She scanned the patient's visible symptoms from a distance. Pale skin, erratic movement, the way the paramedics kept adjusting the bag valve mask. Then she noticed something else. One of the paramedics had a small tear in his glove, just a nick, barely visible, but his hand was shaking. Emily's breath stilled. She knew what this was. "Officer," she called through the partition separating her from the front seat. Dalton glanced back. "What?" "That patient they just brought in. You need to let me talk to someone inside." "You're not talking to anyone." "Listen to me. I know what's wrong with him." Dalton laughed. "Sure you do. I'm serious. This isn't an overdose. It's a neurotoxin." The younger officer, sitting in the driver's seat, turned around. "A what?" "Neurotoxin, chemical exposure, probably aerosolized. If they don't identify it in the next 10 minutes, he's dead. And anyone who came into contact with him is at risk." Dalton's expression shifted. Not quite belief, but uncertainty. "How would you know that?" "Because I've seen it before." "In your field medicine job?" "Yes." He stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head. "You're full of it. Check the paramedics' hands. If one of them has a tremor, it means he's already showing early symptoms. This thing spreads fast." Dalton didn't respond, but she saw him glance toward the hospital entrance, saw the doubt creep in. Inside the ER, the patient's heart rate spiked again. Alarm screamed. Kessler was losing him. "Charge the paddles," he snapped. "Clear." The patient's body convulsed. Once, twice. The monitor flatlined for 3 seconds before spiking back into an erratic rhythm. "What is this?" one of the nurses whispered. Kessler had no answer. Then, from across the room, Marie spoke up. "Dr. Kessler, Emily Harper was just arrested outside. She's a nurse here. She might—" "I don't care about Emily Harper right now," Kessler cut her off. "I care about keeping this man alive." But the words lingered, and in the back of his mind, a small voice asked, "What if she knows something?" Outside, the night air grew colder. Emily sat in silence, wrists still cuffed, watching the hospital like a hawk. She counted the seconds, estimated the progression. If the patient had been exposed an hour ago, symptoms would escalate fast. Respiratory failure within 20 minutes, cardiac arrest within 30. The ER had maybe 15 minutes before things went critical. She leaned forward again. "Officer Dalton, you need to listen to me." He didn't turn around. "Please." Still nothing. Then, from inside this hospital, a sound. Muffled but unmistakable. Shouting. Running footsteps. Dalton's radio crackled to life. A frantic voice. "We need backup at Redwood Valley Medical. Possible contamination event. Repeat, possible contamination." The transmission cut off. Dalton's face went white. He looked at the younger officer, then back at Emily. "What did you say this was?" "Neurotoxin, chemical exposure, likely weaponized." "Weaponized?" The younger officer's voice cracked. "Who the hell are you?" Emily met his eyes. "Someone you should have listened to 10 minutes ago." Before Dalton could respond, headlights cut through the darkness. 3 black SUVs roared into the parking lot, moving fast. They didn't park. They blocked. Doors flew open. Armed personnel in tactical gear spilled out, spreading across the hospital entrance with military precision. The crowd scattered. Phones dropped. People ran. Dalton stumbled out of the patrol car, hand on his weapon. "Who the hell?" One of the tactical operators strode forward. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made everyone else feel small. His uniform had no visible insignia, but the way he moved screamed authority. "Where is she?" he demanded. Dalton blinked. "Where is who?" The operator's eyes locked onto the patrol car. Onto Emily. He crossed the distance in 4 strides and yanked open the door. Emily looked up at him, wrists still cuffed, face calm. "Commander Brooks?" she said quietly. Brooks didn't smile. "You're a hard woman to find, Harper." "I've been right here." "In the back of a patrol car. Detained. Jesus Christ." He turned to Dalton. "Who authorized this?" Dalton stammered. She had suspicious materials." "Suspicious materials?" Brooks' voice dropped to a lethal calm. "Did you run her credentials?" "Her what?" Brooks pulled a tablet from his vest and thrust it at Dalton. On the screen was Emily's military file, service record, classified clearances, redacted operations. The words hazardous materials specialist and counter-chemical warfare unit were visible even through the black bars of redaction. Dalton's face drained of color. Brooks leaned in close. You just detained a federal asset during an active crisis. Uncuff her. Now. The younger officer fumbled with the keys. Emily's wrists came free. She rubbed them briefly, then stood. Brooks stepped aside. We've got a situation inside. I know. Emily's voice was steady. Neurotoxin exposure, likely VX variant or something close. The patient's already symptomatic. Anyone who touched him without proper PPE is at risk. Brooks nodded. We've been tracking a stolen shipment for 3 days. Thought we had it contained. Then this. How many exposed? Unknown. We locked down the ER 2 minutes ago, but he stopped, looked at her. We need you in there. Emily didn't hesitate. She started toward the hospital. Behind her, Dalton stood frozen. The younger officer looked like he might be sick. Brennan, the security guard who'd started all this, watched from a distance. His face was pale. Emily didn't look back. She walked through the hospital doors, past the armed personnel now securing every entrance, past the terrified staff huddled in corners. Commander Brooks stayed at her shoulder. How bad? She asked. Bad enough that we scrambled a full containment team. This wasn't supposed to happen. It never is. They reached the ER. The doors were sealed. Through the glass, Emily could see chaos, nurses in a panic, Kessler shouting orders, the patient convulsing on the table. Brooks handed her a tablet. Everything we know is on here. We've got a decon unit en route, but they're 20 minutes out. We don't have 20 minutes. I know. Emily scanned the data. Chemical signature, exposure timeline, symptom progression. It matched what she'd suspected. A VX-adjacent compound, weaponized, likely dispersed through skin contact or inhalation. Fast-acting. Lethal in small doses. She looked up at Brooks. I need full access, no questions. You've got it. Emily pushed through the ER doors. Every head turned. Kessler stared at her like she'd materialized from nowhere. What the hell are you doing here? He demanded. You were just arrested. Clear the room, Emily said calmly. Excuse me? Everyone who touched that patient, out, now. Kessler's face flushed. You don't get to... Brooks stepped into view behind her. His presence filled the doorway. She does. Clear the room. That's an order. The ER staff hesitated. Then, slowly, they moved. Kessler stood his ground for a moment longer before stepping back, confusion and anger warring on his face. Emily approached the patient. His breathing was shallow, erratic. Skin gray, pupils fixed. She checked his vitals on the monitor. Heart rate 160. Blood pressure 80/50. Oxygen saturation dropping. She turned to the nearest nurse still in the room, a young woman named Cassie, barely out of nursing school. Gloves, mask, full PPE. Don't touch anything with bare skin. Cassie nodded, moving fast. Emily pulled on gloves herself, then leaned over the patient. She checked his exposed skin, found a small abrasion on his forearm, redness, blistering, chemical burn. There, she murmured, contact point. She grabbed a syringe from the crash cart, filled it with atropine, and administered it directly into the patient's IV line. Then she added pralidoxime. The antidotes for organophosphate poisoning wouldn't be perfect for a VX variant, but they'd buy time. The patient's breathing steadied, just slightly. Enough. Emily stepped back, pulling off her gloves carefully. She looked at Cassie. You touched him? Cassie nodded, terrified. Did you have gloves on the whole time? I think so. I don't know. Show me your hands. Cassie held them out, steady, no tremor. Emily exhaled. You're okay, for now, but you need to be monitored. Anyone else who came into contact, same thing, quarantine and observation. She turned to Brooks, who'd been watching from the doorway. We need a full decon protocol. This room, everyone in it, everyone who was in the ambulance, and I need to know where this came from. Brooks nodded. We're working on it. Kessler, standing just outside the ER, finally found his voice. How did you... Emily didn't let him finish. You had symptoms 12 minutes ago, and you missed it. Kessler's mouth opened, closed. He had no response. Behind him, the hospital staff stood in stunned silence. Marie, who'd looked away earlier, now stared at Emily with something close to awe. David from radiology whispered to someone beside him. The word military drifted through the air. Outside in the parking lot, Dalton and the younger officer stood beside their patrol car. They could see everything through the hospital windows. See Emily moving with precision. See Brooks deferring to her. See the crisis stabilizing under her command. Dalton's hand shook as he lowered his radio. "We just arrested her," the younger officer said, voice hollow. Dalton didn't answer. He couldn't. Inside the ER, Emily was already moving to the next step. She pulled Brooks aside. "I need to see the source." "Where did this patient come from?" "Downtown hotel, room 412. We've got a team there now." "Then that's where I need to be." "Harper, you've been out of the field for 3 years. And I just saved that man's life. You need me." Brooks studied her, then nodded. "Let's go." They moved toward the exit. As they passed the ER staff, Emily caught sight of Kessler again. He looked smaller now, uncertain. The same man who'd dismissed her earlier tonight, who'd never bothered to learn her name, now couldn't meet her eyes. She didn't say anything, didn't need to. The doors slid open. Emily stepped out into the night, Commander Brooks at her side. The tactical team fell into formation around them. SUVs were already running, engines growling. Behind her, the hospital buzzed with whispers, questions, shock. Ahead, the real work was just beginning. The SUV tore through downtown streets with the kind of speed that made traffic lights irrelevant. Emily sat in the passenger seat, her hands resting on her knees, eyes focused on the road ahead. Brooks drove with one hand on the wheel, the other holding a radio that crackled with updates every few seconds. "Team Alpha is on site, building secured. No additional casualties reported." Brooks keyed the radio. "Copy. We're 3 minutes out. Keep everyone clear of room 412 until Harper gives the all clear." Emily glanced at him. "You're putting a lot of faith in someone who was in handcuffs 20 minutes ago." "You're the only person within 100 miles who knows what we're dealing with." Brooks didn't take his eyes off the road. "And you saved a man's life back there without hesitation. That's all the faith I need." "What about the others? The paramedics? The nurses?" "Quarantined. Medical team is running blood panels now. If they were exposed, we'll know within the hour." Emily nodded. She'd done what she could. Now the focus had to shift to the source. If this compound was loose in the city, one patient was just the beginning. The hotel loomed ahead, a mid-tier downtown building with faded signage and a parking lot half full of rental cars. Nothing about it screamed danger. That was the problem. Places like this were perfect for transactions that needed to stay invisible. Brooks pulled up to the front entrance where 3 more SUVs were already parked. Armed personnel had formed a perimeter. Civilians were being escorted out through a side exit, some in robes, others in street clothes, all looking confused and frightened. A woman in a hotel uniform stood near the door, talking rapidly to one of the operators. Emily stepped out of the vehicle. The night air was sharp, cutting through her scrubs. She hadn't had time to change, hadn't had time to think about anything except the next step. Brooks fell in beside her. "4th floor, room 412. The guest checked in 3 days ago under a false name, paid cash. Housekeeping found him unresponsive this evening." "Anyone else in the room?" "No, but we found residue on the bathroom counter. Lab's analyzing it now." They entered the lobby. The lights were too bright, fluorescent, and clinical. A few guests lingered near the elevators, trying to get answers from hotel staff. One of Brooks's team members intercepted them with calm authority, guiding them toward the exit. Emily and Brooks took the stairs. 4 flights up, moving fast. Her legs burned, but she didn't slow. At the top, another operator stood guard outside room 412. He straightened when he saw Brooks. "Sir, room's clear. We've got trace amounts of an unknown substance in the bathroom and on the bed linens. No secondary devices, no immediate threats." Brooks looked at Emily. "Your call." She pulled on a fresh pair of gloves from her pocket. Old habit, always carrying extras. Then she stepped past the operator and into the room. The smell hit her first. Faint but distinct. Chemical. Slightly sweet. Wrong. She scanned the space quickly. The bed was unmade, sheets tangled. A suitcase lay open on the floor, clothes spilling out. The bathroom door was ajar. Emily moved toward it carefully, avoiding contact with anything. Inside, the countertop was a mess. Vials, syringes, cotton swabs. Someone had been working here, mixing something. She leaned closer, examining the residue without touching it. Crystalline, pale yellow, consistent with a VX derivative. This wasn't accidental exposure, she said quietly. He was handling it, probably preparing doses. Brooks appeared in the doorway. For what? Sale. Distribution. Could be anything. Emily straightened, scanning the rest of the bathroom. But he screwed up. Didn't use proper safety protocols. Absorbed it through his skin. So he poisoned himself. Looks like it. Brooks' radio crackled. Commander, we've got a hit on the guest registry. Name matches a known associate of the Volkov Syndicate. Low-level courier. Emily's stomach tightened. Volkov. She knew that name. Everyone in her old unit did. Eastern European crime network with fingers in weapons trafficking, narcotics, and worse. If they were moving chemical weapons now, this was bigger than one hotel room. Brooks swore under his breath. How much of this stuff is out there? No way to know yet. Emily backed out of the bathroom, careful not to disturb anything. But if he was a courier, he wasn't working alone. Someone gave him this. Someone's expecting delivery. Then we need to find them before they realize their guy's in a coma. Emily nodded. She moved back into the main room, scanning for anything they might have missed. Her eyes landed on the suitcase. She crouched beside it, studying the contents. Clothes, toiletries, a laptop. She didn't touch the laptop. That was for the tech team. But tucked into a side pocket was a folded piece of paper. She pulled it out carefully, unfolded it. A handwritten address. Local. Southside Warehouse District. Brooks. He crossed the room in 2 strides, looked at the paper. His jaw tightened. That's industrial zone, abandoned buildings, perfect for a drop site. Emily stood. We need to move. Now. Harper. If Volkov's people are there, then we don't have time to wait for backup. She met his eyes. You brought me here because I know this stuff. I'm telling you, if there's more of this compound at that location, every minute we waste is a chance for it to disappear, or worse. Brooks stared at her for a long moment. Then he keyed his radio. All units, we have a potential secondary location. Southside, Warehouse District. I'm sending coordinates. We're moving in 5. They were back in the SUV within minutes. This time, 2 more vehicles followed. The convoy cut through the city like a blade, sirens off but lights flashing. Emily's mind raced. She hadn't done field work in 3 years. Hadn't wanted to. After 6 years of operations in places that erased people from memory, she'd walked away. Chose nursing because it was quiet, predictable, safe. But sitting in this vehicle, heading toward a potential weapons cache with a military commander who trusted her expertise, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. The warehouse district was exactly what Brooks had described. Industrial decay frozen in time. Rusted metal buildings, broken windows, weeds pushing through cracked asphalt. The kind of place where nobody looked twice at suspicious activity. Brooks parked 2 blocks away from the address. The other vehicles spread out, flanking the target building from different angles. Emily could see the structure now, a massive corrugated steel warehouse with a faded shipping company logo on the side. No lights. No movement. Brooks handed her a radio. Stay on channel 3. You see anything, you call it in. I'm coming with you. No, you're not tactical. You're a specialist. You stay in the vehicle until we clear the building. Emily wanted to argue, but he was right. She wasn't trained for entry operations. She'd done threat assessment, contamination analysis, battlefield triage, not room clearing. Fine, but if you find anything chemical, you stop and wait for me. Deal. Brooks and his team moved out. 8 operators, all armed, all moving with the kind of precision that came from years of training. They approached the warehouse from multiple angles, silent and fast. Emily watched through the SUV's windshield, her heart pounding despite her outward calm. The entry was textbook. Breaching charge on the side door, flash of light. Operators poured in. Radio chatter filled her earpiece. First floor clear. Moving to second level. We've got crates. Lots of them. Emily's pulse quickened. Crates could mean anything. Weapons, drugs, or something worse. Then Brooks' voice, tight with tension. Harper, we need you in here. Now. She was out of the SUV before he finished speaking, crossed the distance to the warehouse at a run. One of the operators stood at the door, weapon lowered. He nodded as she passed. Inside, the space was cavernous. Shadows hung from the ceiling where old fluorescent fixtures had long since burned out. The team had set up portable lights, harsh white beams cutting through the darkness. In the center of the room were the crates, 10 of them, maybe 12, stacked haphazardly. Brooks stood beside one that had been pried open. His face was grim. Emily approached, looked inside. Vials, hundreds of them, each one filled with the same pale yellow liquid she'd seen in the hotel bathroom. Jesus, she breathed. Tell me this isn't what I think it is, Brooks said quietly. Emily pulled on fresh gloves, carefully lifted one vial, examined it. The consistency, the color, the faint chemical smell even through the sealed glass. She set it down gently. It's a VX variant. Weaponized. High purity. She turned to Brooks. This isn't street-level stuff. This is military grade. How much are we looking at? Emily did the math in her head. Each vial held maybe 20 milliliters, hundreds of vials per crate, 12 crates. Enough to kill thousands, maybe tens of thousands, depending on dispersal method. The warehouse went silent. Every operator in the room stopped moving. Brooks's hand tightened on his weapon. We need containment. Full hazmat team. Nobody touches anything until... A sound cut him off. Metallic. Sharp. Like a door slamming. Everyone froze. Brooks raised his fist. Silent signal. The team spread out, weapons up, moving toward the source of the noise. Emily's instinct was to follow, but Brooks shot her a look that said, stay put. She stayed. Seconds stretched. Her breathing sounded too loud in her own ears. Then, from somewhere deeper in the warehouse, voices. Shouting. Not English. Russian, maybe. Hard to tell with the echoes. Gunfire erupted. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Muzzle flashes lit up the far end of the warehouse. Emily dropped to a crouch behind one of the crates, heart hammering. The tactical team returned fire with disciplined precision. Short, controlled bursts, then silence again. As sudden as it started. Brooks's voice on the radio. 2 hostiles down, building secure. Harper, you okay? Yeah. She stood slowly, legs shaking. What the hell was that? Volkov's people, they were waiting. Brooks appeared from the shadows, weapons still raised. They knew we'd come. Emily's mind raced. If they knew, that meant someone had tipped them off. Someone with access to law enforcement channels or military communications. The implications were staggering. Brooks seemed to reach the same conclusion. His face darkened. We've got a leak. Before Emily could respond, another voice crackled over the radio. Not one of Brooks's team. Different frequency. A woman's voice, calm and cold. Commander Brooks, I believe you have something that belongs to us. Brooks's eyes went wide. He grabbed his radio. Who is this? Identify yourself. My name is irrelevant, but the merchandise you're currently standing beside is not. You have 60 seconds to vacate the premises before we detonate the building. Emily's blood turned to ice. Detonate? Brooks was already moving. Everyone out, now. Move. The tactical team didn't hesitate. They ran. Emily followed, her legs pumping, breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind her, she could hear Brooks shouting coordinates into his radio, calling for backup, for bomb disposal, for anything. They hit the warehouse door at a full sprint, burst into the night air, kept running, 20 yards, 30, 50. The explosion was massive, a roar of fire and force that ripped through the warehouse like a living thing. The shockwave hit Emily from behind, lifting her off her feet and slamming her into the asphalt. Her ears rang, her vision blurred. She rolled onto her back, gasping. Flames consumed the warehouse, climbing into the night sky. Debris rained down around them, twisted metal, shattered glass, burning fragments of wood. Brooks appeared above her, his face smudged with soot. You hit? Emily shook her head, couldn't hear her own voice. Just the ringing. He pulled her to her feet. Around them, the tactical team was regrouping. One operator was down, clutching his leg. Another was bleeding from a cut above his eye. But they were alive. The warehouse was gone, and with it, all the evidence. Emily stared at the inferno, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. The vials, the compound, tens of thousands of potential casualties. All destroyed? Or was it? Brooks, her voice sounded distant, muffled. If they rigged the building to blow, they knew we'd find it. Yeah. So why leave it behind? Why not move the product before we got here? Brooks' expression changed. Understanding dawned. Because they wanted us to find it, he said slowly. They wanted us to think we'd stopped them. Emily's stomach dropped. It's a decoy. The real shipment is somewhere else. Brooks swore viciously. He grabbed his radio, but before he could speak, it crackled again. The same woman's voice from before. You're smarter than I expected, Commander, but not smart enough. The real question is, how many people will die before you figure out where we've really hidden it? The transmission cut off. Brooks tried to respond. Static. Dead air. Emily looked at him, saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. Somewhere in this city, enough chemical weapons to kill thousands were waiting, and they had no idea where. Brooks turned to his team. Get me everything. Traffic cameras, satellite footage, communications intercepts. I want every vehicle that came within 5 miles of this warehouse in the last 72 hours. The team scattered. Emily stood in the glow of the burning warehouse, her mind racing. She ran through everything she knew. The hotel room, the courier, the warehouse, the explosion. It was all planned, every piece carefully orchestrated, which meant someone very smart was running this operation. Someone who knew how law enforcement would respond. Someone who'd accounted for her. That thought stopped her cold. They'd known she was coming, known she'd identify the compound, known she'd trace it back to the warehouse. They'd used her expertise against them. Brooks, she said quietly, they knew I'd be here. He looked at her sharply. What? Think about it. They left just enough evidence at the hotel to lead us here. They waited until we were inside before making contact. They knew exactly how much time we'd need to get out before the explosion. She met his eyes. They knew a specialist would be with you, someone who could identify the compound fast enough to make us move. Brooks' face went pale. You're saying this was personal? I'm saying they've been watching, and they're still watching. As if to punctuate her words, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. Unknown number, text message. Impressive work tonight, Emily. But you should have stayed in the hospital where you belong. Some wars aren't meant for nurses. Her hands went cold. She showed the screen to Brooks. He grabbed the phone. We need to trace this, now. But Emily barely heard him. Her mind was already elsewhere. Back at Redwood Valley Medical Center. Back to the patrol car. Back to the moment she'd been detained. What if that wasn't random? What if Dalton and his partner had been told to keep her occupied? To delay her response just long enough for the real operation to move forward? Brooks, what time did you get the alert about the hotel patient? He checked his watch. First call came in at 22:47. Why? What time was I detained? I don't know, maybe 22:30? 17 minutes. Just enough time for someone to move a shipment, while the specialist who could identify it was sitting in the back of a patrol car. Emily's breath came faster. They used the arrest. They needed me out of play for just long enough to relocate the real cash. Brooks stared at her. You think the cops were in on it? I think someone made a call, gave them a reason to detain me, keep me busy. She looked at the burning warehouse. The question is, who knew I'd be there? Who knew I work at Redwood Valley? The answer hit her like a physical blow. Someone inside the hospital. Brooks saw the realization on her face. Talk to me. There's a leak. But not in your team. In mine. Emily's voice was steady despite the fear climbing her spine. Someone at Redwood Valley knew I had a military background, knew I'd recognize the compound, and they made sure I was neutralized before the patient even arrived. Who? I don't know. Could be anyone. Staff, administration, even a doctor. Brooks's radio crackled. One of his team members. Voice urgent. Commander, we've got movement. Black van, heading east on Maple, no plates. Thermal shows multiple occupants and cargo. Brooks keyed the radio. Intercept. Do not engage until I give the word. He looked at Emily. You up for another ride? She nodded. Didn't trust herself to speak. They ran for the SUV. The engine roared to life. Brooks accelerated hard, tires screeching. Emily strapped in, her mind still reeling from the implications. Someone she worked with. Someone she saw every day. Someone who'd watched her get arrested and said nothing. The van was 3 blocks ahead when they spotted it. Dark. Fast. Weaving through late-night traffic with the kind of aggression that screamed run. Brooks radioed ahead. Team 2 cut them off at the intersection. Team 3, parallel route. Box them in. The chase unfolded with brutal efficiency. The van tried to shake them, taking a hard right down an alley. But Brooks's team was already there. SUVs blocked both ends, nowhere to run. The van screeched to a halt. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, hands raised. He was young, maybe 30, with a thin face and scared eyes. Brooks and his team surrounded the vehicle, weapons trained. Emily stayed in the SUV, watching through the windshield. "On the ground! Now!" The driver complied. One of the operators zip-tied his hands while another checked the back of the van. "Clear. No hostiles." Brooks approached the rear doors, opened them. Emily couldn't see inside from her angle, but she saw Brooks's expression change. Saw him step back, hand going to his radio. "Harper, get over here." She was out of the SUV and moving before she'd consciously decided to. Reached the van, looked inside. Empty. No crates. No vials. No chemical weapons. Just a single piece of paper taped to the interior wall. Emily stepped closer. "Read it. You're chasing shadows while the real threat walks freely through your hospital. Sleep well, Emily." Her vision tunneled, the words blurred and refocused. The hospital. They were talking about Redwood Valley. Brooks was already on the radio. "All units. Code red at Redwood Valley Medical Center. Potential hostile inside the facility. Lock it down. Nobody in or out." Emily's legs moved on their own. Back to the SUV. Brooks was right behind her. "If they're inside, she started. "We'll get there in time," Brooks said, but she could hear the doubt in his voice. They tore through the city streets. Emily's hands gripped the door handle so hard her knuckles went white. Images flashed through her mind. The ER, the staff, Marie and Cassie and all the others who had no idea what was coming. And Dr. Kessler. Arrogant, dismissive Kessler who'd ignored her warnings once already tonight. If he was the leak, if he'd been working with Volkov's people all along. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. Same unknown number. "Tick-tock, Emily. How many people die because you were too slow?" She wanted to throw the phone, wanted to scream. Instead, she forced herself to breathe, to think. If there was a threat inside Redwood Valley, it would be something subtle. Not a bomb, too obvious. Not a shooter, too easy to stop. It would be something that looked normal until it was too late, like a contamination event. "Brooks," she said urgently, "what if the patient wasn't the only exposure? What if they planted the compound inside the hospital?" Brooks' face went rigid. "Where?" "I don't know. Ventilation system, supply closet. Could be anywhere." She checked her phone. "We need to evacuate, now!" "Already in motion. We've got units en route." But Emily knew it wouldn't be fast enough. Evacuation protocols took time they didn't have. The hospital appeared ahead, all lit up against the night sky. Brooks pulled up to the entrance with a screech of brakes. Military vehicles were already there, forming a perimeter. Staff and patients were streaming out of the exits, some on gurneys, others on foot. Emily jumped out of the SUV before it fully stopped, ran for the entrance. An operator tried to stop her. "Ma'am, you can't. I work here." She pushed past him, into the chaos. Inside, alarms were blaring. Red emergency lights strobed. People were shouting, crying, scrambling. Emily fought upstream against the evacuation flow, heading deeper into the hospital. She had to find it. Had to stop it before... A sound. Faint but distinct. Hissing. Her blood froze. She followed the sound. Down a corridor. Past the ER. Toward the storage wing. The hissing grew louder. Emily rounded a corner and stopped. There. In the supply room. A pressurized canister, rigged with a timer. The hissing was gas escaping. Aerosol dispersal. And the timer read 0047. 47 seconds. Her training kicked in. She assessed the device. Simple setup. Canister connected to a battery-powered valve. Timer linked to a trigger mechanism. Disabling it would require cutting the power source without triggering the dispersal valve. She had no tools, no protective gear, just her hands. In less than a minute, Brooke's voice boomed from somewhere behind her. "Harper, where are you? Storage wing, I found it." Footsteps. Running. Brooks appeared, 2 operators with him. "We need bomb disposal," he started. "No time." Emily was already moving toward the device. "I can do this. Harper, 30 seconds, Brooks. You want to argue or you want me to work?" He stepped back. Emily's hands moved with precision, born from years of training she'd tried to forget. She found the battery pack, traced the wiring, identified the trigger mechanism. 20 seconds. She needed something to cut the wire. Her fingers found the small trauma shears she kept in her pocket, habit from nursing shifts. She pulled them out. 15 seconds. Positioned the shears around the wire, connecting the battery to the timer. 1 cut. That's all it would take. But if she cut the wrong wire, the valve would open instantly. Full dispersal. 10 seconds. Her hands were steady, her breathing calm. She blocked out everything else. Just her and the device. 5 seconds. She cut. The timer stopped at 0003. The hissing ceased. Emily stepped back, legs suddenly weak. The shears clattered to the floor. Brooks was at her side in an instant. "Is it safe?" "Yeah." Her voice came out rough. "It's safe." He radioed his team. "Threat neutralized. Bring in hazmat to secure the device." Emily leaned against the wall, her whole body trembling now that the adrenaline was fading. She'd done it. Stopped the dispersal. Saved the hospital. But the victory felt hollow. Because the person who'd planted this device, they were still out there, still watching, and they knew exactly who she was. Brooks pulled her out of the storage room as his team moved in. The hallway was emptying now, the evacuation nearly complete. Emily could see daylight through the windows. Dawn was breaking. She'd been awake for nearly 24 hours. "We need to debrief," Brooks said. "Figure out who—" Emily's phone buzzed. She didn't want to look. Didn't want to see another message from whoever was orchestrating this nightmare. But she looked anyway. "Well done, Emily. You saved them. For now. But tell me, who's going to save you?" Attached to the message was a photo. Her apartment, taken from across the street, time-stamped 20 minutes ago. Emily's hands went numb. The phone screen blurred and refocused. Her apartment building, the window to her unit on the 3rd floor. The photo was clear enough to see the curtain she'd left half open that morning. Brooks took the phone from her hand, studied the image. His jaw tightened. "When was this taken?" 20 minutes ago. Emily's voice sounded distant to her own ears. "While we were here. They're watching you in real time." Brooks handed the phone back. "We need to get you somewhere safe." "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. "They want me scared. Want me running. I'm not giving them that." "Harper, this isn't about pride. It's about leverage." Emily met his eyes. "They sent that photo because they want me to know they can reach me anytime. But if they wanted me dead, I'd already be dead. They need something." Brooks studied her face. "What?" "I don't know yet." She pocketed the phone. "But I'm going to find out." Around them, the hospital was slowly returning to controlled chaos. The hazmat team had secured the canister from the storage room. Evacuated patients were being moved back inside. Staff clustered in small groups, talking in hushed voices. Emily could see the fear in their faces, the confusion. And she could see the way they looked at her now, not with dismissal or indifference, with something closer to awe, or maybe fear of a different kind. Marie approached from the ER entrance, still in her scrubs. Her face was pale. "Emily, are you okay?" "I'm fine." "They're saying you stopped a chemical attack, that you saved everyone." Emily didn't respond. Didn't know what to say. Marie continued, her voice dropping lower. "I'm sorry. About earlier. When they arrested you, I should have said something. Should have? It's done." Emily cut her off. Not unkindly, but firm. "Right now I need to know who was in the hospital tonight. Full staff roster. Every doctor, nurse, tech, janitor. Everyone. Marie blinked. Why? Because someone planted that device. Someone with access. Understanding dawned on Marie's face. Then horror. You think it was one of us? I think someone knew exactly where to put that canister for maximum dispersal. Someone who understands hospital layout and ventilation systems. Emily glanced at Brooks. Can your team pull security footage? Already on it. Brooks keyed his radio. I need all security recordings from Redwood Valley for the last 48 hours. Focus on storage areas and restricted access zones. Emily turned back to Marie. Where's Dr. Kessler? I don't know. He was in the ER earlier, but I haven't seen him since the evacuation started. A cold feeling settled in Emily's gut. Kessler. The man who'd dismissed her warnings, who'd been so quick to doubt her, who'd been in the perfect position to delay response time. Find him, she said quietly. Now. Marie hurried off. Emily watched her go, then turned to Brooks. We need to talk. Somewhere private. He led her to an empty conference room on the second floor. The door clicked shut behind them. Emily paced to the window, looking out over the parking lot where she'd been detained just hours ago. It felt like a lifetime. You think the doctor's involved? Brooks said. Not a question. I think he's either involved or he's a liability they're using. Emily faced him. He had access. He had opportunity. And he made every wrong call tonight. Making bad calls doesn't make him a traitor. No, but it makes him vulnerable. She pulled out her phone again, looked at the photo of her apartment. They've been watching me for a while, long enough to know my schedule, where I live, where I work, long enough to set up tonight's operation around my presence. Brooks crossed his arms. So what changed? Why come after you now? Emily thought back through the timeline. 3 years since she had left military service. 3 years of quiet nursing shifts and anonymous existence. Then tonight, a patient with neurotoxin exposure shows up at her hospital. A patient who just happens to be connected to Volkov's network. They needed me to find the warehouse, she said slowly. Needed someone with my background to identify the compound fast enough to make the response predictable. But they couldn't just call me up and ask for help. So they created a scenario where I'd be brought in naturally. The patient. Right. They poisoned their own courier, dumped him at a hotel, waited for the hospital to call emergency services. They knew he'd end up at Redwood Valley. It's the closest trauma center. And they knew I'd be working tonight. Brooks frowned. How would they know your schedule? Hospital rosters are digital, easy to hack if you know what you're doing. Emily's mind was racing now, pieces clicking together. Or easier still, someone inside just tells you. Kessler. Maybe. Or someone else. Could be administration, could be IT, could be anyone with access to staff scheduling systems. Brooks's radio crackled. Commander, we've located Dr. Kessler. He's in his office. Alone. Emily and Brooks exchanged a look. Then they were moving. Kessler's office was on the 3rd floor, tucked away in the administrative wing. The door was closed, but not locked. Brooks knocked once, then entered without waiting for a response. Dr. Raymond Kessler sat behind his desk, staring at his computer screen. He looked up when they entered. His face was drawn, exhausted. When he saw Emily, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. Dr. Kessler, Brooks said formally, we need to ask you some questions. Kessler's gaze shifted to Brooks, taking in the military bearing, the tactical vest still strapped across his chest. About what? About tonight's events. About the patient with neurotoxin exposure. About the device planted in the storage room. Kessler's face went pale. I don't know anything about a device. But you know about the patient. Emily stepped forward. You were the attending when he came in. You ran the initial assessment. Yes, and I treated him to the best of my ability. You ignored every warning sign, dismissed my input when I tried to tell you what you were dealing with. Kessler stood, his chair scraping back. I made clinical judgments based on the information available at the time. You made mistakes. Emily's voice was cold. Whether through incompetence or intent, I don't know yet. But you delayed treatment long enough for this situation to spiral. Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking why a trained emergency physician with 20 years of experience would miss obvious symptoms of chemical exposure. Kessler's hands shook. He shoved them in his pockets. I told you, I made a clinical judgment. Show me your phone, Brooks interrupted. Kessler blinked. What? Your phone. Show it to me, now. You can't just... Brooks moved fast. He rounded the desk and reached for Kessler's pocket. Kessler jerked back, but not fast enough. Brooks pulled out a smartphone, a personal device, not hospital-issued. You have no right, Kessler started. Brooks was already scrolling through recent calls. His expression darkened. He held the screen up so Emily could see. Multiple calls to an unlisted number, all within the last 6 hours. The most recent was 23 minutes ago, right around the time Emily had been photographed at her apartment. Kessler's face crumbled. I didn't have a choice. Emily's stomach turned. What did you do? They contacted me 3 weeks ago, said they knew about my gambling debts, said they'd make them disappear if I did a few small favors. What kind of favors? Brooks' voice was deadly quiet. Just information, staff schedules, security protocols. I didn't know what they wanted it for. I swear I didn't know. You gave them access to this hospital. Emily could barely control her anger. You helped them plant a chemical weapon that could have killed hundreds of people. I didn't plant anything. I just gave them information. Information they used to nearly commit mass murder. Brooks grabbed Kessler's arm. You're under arrest for conspiracy, aiding and abetting terrorism, and about 15 other charges I'll think of on the way to detention. Kessler's legs gave out. Brooks caught him, held him upright. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. Too late for that. Brooks hauled him toward the door. He looked back at Emily. Stay here. I'll have 2 operators posted outside until we sort this out. Emily nodded. She was alone in Kessler's office within seconds, the door closing behind Brooks and his prisoner. She stood in the silence, trying to process what had just happened. Kessler had been compromised, used, but he was small time, a pawn. The real players were still out there, and they were still watching. Her phone buzzed. Another message. Same unknown number. Poor Dr. Kessler. Weak men make such useful tools. But you're not weak, are you, Emily? That's why we need to meet. She stared at the screen, typed a response. Who are you? The reply came instantly. Someone who knows what you're really capable of. Someone who knows you're wasted playing nurse. We should talk. Face to face. Not happening. Then more people die. Your choice. Emily's hands tightened on the phone. She typed again. If you wanted to kill people, you would have already. You want something else. A pause. Longer this time. Then, smart. Very smart. Yes, we want something else. We want you. Your skills, your expertise. There's a job coming that requires someone with your particular background. I don't work for terrorists. Terrorist is such an ugly word. We prefer to think of ourselves as entrepreneurs, and we pay very well. Go to hell. Temper, Emily. Here's the situation. We have another canister, bigger than the one you just disabled. It's somewhere in this city, somewhere crowded, somewhere important, and it's on a timer. Emily's blood ran cold. You're lying. Am I? Check the news. She opened her phone's browser with shaking hands, pulled up local news. The top headline made her stomach drop. Breaking. Suspicious package found at Central Station. Police evacuating terminal, Central Station. The main transit hub for the city. Thousands of people pass through there every day. Another message appeared. See, we're very real and very serious. You have 2 hours before dispersal. You can try to find it on your own, or you can work with us. Help us with one small job, and we'll tell you exactly where it is. What job? There's a federal witness being held at a secure facility outside the city. We need information from him, information you're uniquely qualified to extract. Former military interrogator, yes? Trained in enhanced techniques? Emily's hands were shaking now. They'd done their homework, knew things about her service record that were supposed to be classified. I never worked interrogation. Don't lie to me, Emily. I've read your file. The unredacted version. Cubble, 2019. The asset known as Scorpion. You broke him in 6 hours when everyone else had failed. We need that level of skill. She closed her eyes. Kabul. A mission she'd tried to forget. A man who'd known the location of a weapons cache that could have killed hundreds of coalition troops. She'd done what was necessary. Hated every second of it. And someone had been watching. That was different. That was sanctioned. And this isn't? We're offering you a chance to save thousands of lives. All you have to do is have a conversation with one man. Who's the witness? Someone who stole from us. Someone who knows where we keep our inventory. Get him to talk, and we tell you where the canister is. Everyone wins. Emily's mind raced. This was a trap. Had to be. But if they really had planted another device at Central Station, she couldn't ignore it. Her phone rang. Not a text this time. An actual call from the unknown number. She answered. "Hello, Emily." The voice was female, smooth, with a slight accent she couldn't place. Eastern European, maybe. "I thought it was time we spoke properly." "Who are you?" "You can call me Vera, and before you ask, yes, that's my real name. I have no reason to hide from you." "What do you want?" "I already told you. We want your cooperation. Just once. Just this one job. And if I refuse, then Central Station becomes a memorial. And all those deaths are on your conscience. Can you live with that, Emily? Can you go back to your quiet nursing job knowing you could have stopped it?" Emily's jaw clenched. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't waste that much product on a single attack." "Wouldn't I?" Vera's voice turned cold. "We've already written off the warehouse inventory, already lost the hotel cash. This is our last sample, and we're going to use it one way or another, either as leverage to get what we need from you or as a demonstration to our next potential recruit. You're insane. I'm practical. And I'm giving you a choice. Work with us for 2 hours, save thousands of lives, and walk away, or refuse and live with the consequences." Emily looked out the window of Kessler's office. Dawn light was spreading across the city. Somewhere out there, people were going about their morning routines, catching trains, meeting friends, living their lives. None of them knowing that a chemical weapon was ticking down. "How do I know you'll keep your word?" she asked quietly. "You don't. But you know that we've kept you alive this long. We could have killed you a dozen times tonight. We didn't. That should tell you something." It did. It told Emily that Vera wasn't lying about needing her skills, that whatever job they had planned, it required someone with her exact background. "Where's the witness?" Emily asked. She could hear the smile in Vera's voice. "Smart choice. He's being held at a black site 40 miles north of the city. Federal facility. Very secure. But we've arranged access for you." "Access? How?" "Commander Brooks is about to receive orders to transfer you to a secure debriefing location. Those orders will be legitimate, routing through proper channels. You'll be escorted by 2 agents to the facility. Once there, you'll have 30 minutes with the witness. And then? Then you tell us what we need to know. We give you the location of the canister. Everyone goes home happy." Emily's mind was working through the angles. If Vera had the authority to issue transfer orders through federal channels, she had serious connections. This wasn't just a crime syndicate. This was something bigger. "What if I tell Brooks what you're planning?" Emily asked. "Then he wastes time trying to verify whether I'm telling the truth about the canister. And while he's doing that, the timer keeps running. You're smart enough to do the math, Emily. You don't have time to gamble." She was right. Even if Emily told Brooks everything right now, he'd need to verify the threat, mobilize bomb disposal, evacuate Central Station. That was an hour minimum, maybe 2. And if Vera was telling the truth about the 2-hour timer, they'd barely make it, unless Emily played along. "I need proof the canister exists," Emily said. "Check your phone." A new message appeared. A video file. Emily opened it. The footage showed a metallic canister, similar to the one she'd disabled at the hospital, but larger. Much larger. It was rigged with the same kind of battery-powered dispersal valve. The timer on screen read 1 hour 47 minutes and 23 seconds. And counting down. The video panned to show the location. A maintenance room. Pipes along the ceiling. Electrical boxes on the walls. And in the background, visible through a small window, the unmistakable architecture of Central Station's main terminal. Emily's hands went cold. "Convinced?" Vera asked. "How do I know that video is real, could be staged?" "You don't. But are you willing to bet thousands of lives on it?" Emily closed her eyes. She was trapped. Completely and thoroughly trapped. Either she cooperated and became complicit in whatever Vera had planned, or she refused and risked a mass casualty event. There was no good choice. What information do you need from the witness? She asked. Access codes. He helped design our logistics network before he decided to cooperate with the feds. We need the encryption keys he gave them. Without those, we can't access our remaining inventory. So this is about money, product. Everything's about money, Emily. Surely your military service taught you that. Emily wanted to argue, wanted to throw the phone across the room, but she couldn't, because somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice was whispering that Vera might be right, that the 2 hours she'd spent extracting information from a criminal witness was worth the thousands of lives she'd save at Central Station. It was a devil's bargain. But it was a bargain she was going to take. Fine, Emily said quietly. I'll do it. But the second I have the information, you give me that location. Of course, I'm a woman of my word. No, you're not. But I don't have a choice. Vera laughed. It was a cold sound. Now you're learning. Expect the transfer orders in 10 minutes. And Emily, don't try to be clever. We'll know if you deviate from the plan. And if you do, that timer stops only when the canister disperses. The line went dead. Emily stood in the empty office, phone clutched in her hand, feeling like she'd just made a deal with something far worse than she'd imagined. The door opened behind her. Brooks stepped in, his face grim. We've got a problem. I know, Emily said quietly. He blinked. You know? About Central Station, about the canister, about the transfer orders you're about to receive. Brooks stared at her. How? Because they just called me, offered me a deal. His expression went from confusion to fury in seconds. What kind of deal? Emily told him everything, the phone calls, the messages, Vera's demands, the video of the canister, all of it. By the time she finished, Brooks looked like he wanted to put his fist through a wall. This is a setup, he said flatly. They're playing you. I know. Then you can't go. I have to. Like hell you do. We'll evacuate Central Station, sweep every inch of it, find that canister. In 2 hours? With a facility that size? Emily shook her head. You know that's not realistic. Even with your full team, you'd need 3 hours minimum to clear a building that large. And that's assuming the device is even where they showed it. Could be anywhere in that complex. Brooks's jaw worked. So what? You just do what they say? Help them torture some witness for information? I'm going to talk to him, not torture him. Emily, I know what I'm doing. She met his eyes. I've done it before. That was different. That was military operations with oversight. And nothing. Emily's voice was hard. The job was the same. Get information from someone who doesn't want to give it. I was good at it then. I can be good at it now. Brooks looked at her for a long moment. You've spent 3 years trying to get away from that life. You really want to go back? No, but I want thousands of people to die even less. Before Brooks could respond, his radio crackled. Commander, we've received priority orders from Federal Command. You're to release Harper to Agents Milliken and Torres for immediate transfer to a secure facility. Orders are authenticated and verified. Brooks swore under his breath, keyed the radio. Copy. When are they arriving? They're outside now, sir. Emily and Brooks locked eyes. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. Yeah, I do. Then I'm coming with you. You can't. The orders specify only the 2 agents and me. If you try to follow, they'll know, and the deal falls apart. Brooks looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. I'll have teams sweep Central Station anyway, he said. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe? Emily didn't believe it. Neither did he. She headed for the door. Brooks caught her arm. Harper, be careful. These people, they're not going to just let you walk away after this. I know. And if this witness, if you have to... He stopped. Started again. Just remember who you are. Don't let them turn you into something you're not. Emily almost laughed. Brooks, they're not turning me into anything. They're just reminding me what I used to be. She pulled free and walked out. The 2 agents were waiting in the lobby. Both looked federal, dark suits, earpieces, expressions that gave away nothing. One was tall and lean with graying hair. The other was younger, Hispanic, with sharp eyes that tracked Emily's every movement. Miss Harper, the older agent said. I'm Milliken. This is Torres. We're here to escort you to a debriefing. I know why you're here. Milliken didn't react, just gestured toward the exit. Our vehicle is outside. Emily walked between them. Behind her, she could feel Brooks watching. The hospital staff, too. All of them wondering what was happening, where she was going. Marie stood near the nurse's station. Their eyes met. Marie looked scared. Emily wanted to tell her it would be okay. Wanted to say something reassuring, but she couldn't, because she didn't know if it was true. The vehicle was a black sedan, government plates. Torres opened the rear door. Emily slid in. The door closed with a heavy thunk. Child locks. No handles on the inside. Milliken drove. Torres sat in the passenger seat. Neither spoke. They pulled out of the hospital parking lot as the sun crept over the horizon. Emily watched the city pass by through tinted windows. Normal people starting normal days. A woman jogging, a man walking his dog, kids waiting at a bus stop. None of them knew what was happening. 40 minutes later, they turned off the highway onto an unmarked road. Trees closed in on both sides. No signs, no landmarks, just asphalt cutting through forest. The facility appeared without warning, a chain-link fence topped with razor wire, guard towers, cameras on every corner. A small concrete building that looked more like a bunker than an office. Milliken pulled up to a gate, showed credentials to a guard. The gate slid open. They parked in a small lot. Torres opened Emily's door. This way. Inside the building was exactly what she'd expected. Sterile white walls, fluorescent lights, the smell of industrial cleaner. They walked down a corridor, their footsteps echoing, past several closed doors with keypads. Milliken stopped at one. Punched in a code. The lock clicked. 30 minutes, he said. Not a second more. The door opened. Inside was a small room, table bolted to the floor, 2 chairs. And sitting in one of them, wrists cuffed to the table, was a man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. He was maybe 50. Thin. Receding hairline, prison-issue orange jumpsuit. When he saw Emily, his eyes went wide. Who the hell are you? Emily stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a sound like a vault ceiling. She pulled out the other chair, sat down across from him. My name is Emily Harper, she said calmly, and you're going to tell me everything you know about Volkov's logistics network. The man's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You helped build their supply chain, encrypted their communications, set up their distribution channels, and then you turned federal witness, gave them access codes, decryption keys. I'm not saying anything without my lawyer. Your lawyer isn't here, and we don't have time for legal niceties. Emily leaned forward. Right now there's a chemical weapon counting down at Central Station. Thousands of people are at risk. The only way to stop it is if I give Volkov's people the information they want, which means you're going to talk. The man's face twisted. You're working for them? No, I'm working to stop them from killing a lot of innocent people. But to do that, I need leverage. You're my leverage. Go to hell. I'm a protected witness. Federal custody. You can't... Can't what? Emily's voice dropped. Can't make you talk? You have no idea what I'm capable of. The man swallowed hard. He was scared. Good. Fear was useful. But as Emily stared at him across the table, she felt something ugly twist in her chest, because this wasn't who she wanted to be, not anymore. She'd spent 3 years trying to forget the things she'd done in service, the lines she'd crossed, the people she'd broken. And now here she was, right back in that same room, same situation, different war, same tactics. I can't help you, the man said, voice shaking, even if I wanted to. The codes change every 72 hours. Whatever I gave the feds is already obsolete. Emily's stomach sank. You're lying. I'm not. It's a rolling encryption system. I designed it that way specifically so no one could steal the whole network at once. Then give me the algorithm, the pattern. I can't. It's randomized, keyed to biometric data from 3 different administrators. I was one of them, but I don't have access anymore. Emily stared at him, searching for the lie, but his eyes were steady. Terrified, but steady. He was telling the truth, which meant Vera's entire offer was bullshit. She didn't want information. She wanted... Emily's phone buzzed. She pulled it out. New message. Very good, Emily. You've confirmed what we suspected. The witness is useless, which means you are too. Enjoy the next 90 seconds. Her blood turned to ice. What? The building shook. Not an explosion. Something else. A low rumble from somewhere above. Emily looked up at the ceiling, saw dust raining down from cracks in the concrete. Then alarms, piercing and loud. The door burst open. Torres stood there, weapon drawn. We need to move, now! Emily was on her feet. What's happening? The facility's been compromised. We're evacuating. She ran for the door. The witness was shouting something behind her, but she couldn't hear over the alarms. Torres grabbed her arm, hauled her into the corridor. Milliken was there, talking urgently into a radio. Multiple breaches on the perimeter. Need backup. Gunfire erupted from somewhere close. The sharp crack of assault rifles. Return fire. Shouting. Torres shoved Emily toward an emergency exit. Go, we'll cover. He never finished the sentence. His head snapped back. Blood sprayed. He dropped. Emily's training kicked in before conscious thought. She grabbed his weapon as he fell, checked the safety, rounded the corner low. 3 figures in tactical gear. Not military. Not police. Volkov's people. She fired twice. Center mass. 1 dropped, the other 2 scattered. Milliken was beside her now, weapon up. Can you shoot? Yeah. Then stay close. They moved through the facility like ghosts, trading fire with hostiles at every junction. The building was falling apart around them. More explosions, structural damage. Vera hadn't been lying about one thing. She'd committed serious resources to this operation. But why? If the witness was useless, why attack a federal facility just to... The realization hit Emily like a physical blow. She wasn't here to get information. She was here to be captured. Vera needed someone with Emily's skills, needed her expertise, but Emily would never work for them willingly. So they'd created a scenario where she had no choice. Put her in a federal facility that was about to be overrun. Make her survival dependent on their extraction. And once she was in their custody, they'd have all the time in the world to convince her to cooperate. Milliken! Emily shouted over the gunfire. This isn't a rescue attempt. They're here for me. Milliken's eyes went wide. What? Get out! Leave me! It's the only... The ceiling collapsed. Emily had half a second to register the sound of rending concrete before tons of debris came crashing down. She dove sideways, felt the impact as something massive struck her shoulder. Pain exploded up her arm. Then darkness. When she opened her eyes, she was on her back. Dust everywhere. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't see. Her arm was pinned under something heavy. Footsteps. Voices. Speaking Russian. Strong hands grabbed her, pulled her free. The pain in her shoulder flared white-hot. She tried to fight, but her body wouldn't respond. A face appeared above her. Female. Sharp features. Cold eyes. Hello, Emily, Vera said. Let's talk about your future. Emily's vision swam back into focus slowly. Her shoulder screamed with every breath. Dust coated her throat. She tried to move, but her wrists wouldn't budge. Zip-tied behind her back, tight enough to cut circulation. Vera crouched beside her, studying her face with clinical interest. Up close, she was younger than Emily had imagined from the phone calls. Maybe 40. Sharp cheekbones. Eyes like winter ice. A small scar ran along her jawline, barely visible. Don't struggle, Vera said calmly. You have a dislocated shoulder. Movement will only make it worse. Emily's training kicked through the pain. Assess, adapt, survive. She was in what looked like a cargo van moving fast. 2 armed men sat near the rear doors, Russian tactical gear, professional. Where are you taking me? Somewhere we can talk properly. Vera stood, bracing against the van's movement. The federal facility was compromised beyond repair. Unfortunate, but necessary. You killed federal agents. They were obstacles. Vera's tone suggested she was discussing traffic delays, not murder. We needed you extracted. They were in the way. Emily's mind raced past the pain. If they'd gone to this much trouble, they needed her alive. That gave her leverage. Not much, but enough to work with. The canister at Central Station, Emily said. Was it real? Vera smiled. Does it matter? If you're planning to kill thousands of people, we're not. That device doesn't exist. The video was fabricated. Very convincing, though, wasn't it? Emily's stomach dropped. The entire scenario had been theater. The threat, the urgency, the impossible choice, all of it designed to manipulate her into a position where extraction was possible. You played me. Ooh, we motivated you. There's a difference. Vera sat on a bench along the van's wall. You would never have agreed to meet us voluntarily. So we created circumstances where you had no choice. Basic psychology. Brooks will find you. His team. Commander Brooks is currently coordinating an evacuation of Central Station that will find nothing. By the time he realizes the threat was false, we'll be long gone. Vera checked her watch. We have approximately 90 minutes before anyone realizes where you actually are. The van hit a pothole. Emily's shoulder flared and she bit back a scream. Vera noticed. We should fix that before we arrive. Sergei, the medical kit. One of the armed men produced a field surgery bag. Vera pulled out a syringe, filled it from an unmarked vial. What is that? Emily demanded. Pain management, unless you'd prefer to stay conscious while I relocate your shoulder. Emily wanted to refuse, wanted to stay alert, but the pain was making it hard to think, and she needed her mind clear for whatever came next. Do it, she said through gritted teeth. The injection was quick. Warmth spread through her system, dulling the agony to a manageable throb. Vera moved behind her, hands finding Emily's injured shoulder with practiced efficiency. On 3. 1. She didn't wait for 3. The shoulder popped back into place with a wet click. Emily's vision whited out for a second. When it cleared, Vera was already wrapping the joint with compression bandages. You have medical training, Emily said, voice hoarse. Former military surgeon, Soviet Union, before it collapsed. I learned to work fast with limited resources. Vera finished the wrapping. We're not so different, you and I. We're nothing alike. No? Vera moved back around to face her. We both served our countries in wars we didn't start. We both did things we'd rather forget. And we both walked away from that life, hoping for something quieter. I walked away to save lives. You walked away to profit from death. Vera's expression didn't change. Profit is survival. Everything else is sentiment. The van slowed, turned onto rougher terrain. Emily could hear gravel crunching under the tires. They were leaving the main roads. Minutes passed in silence. Then the van stopped. The rear doors opened onto gray morning light. They were in a clearing surrounded by dense forest. An old hunting cabin stood 30 yards away, weathered wood and broken shutters. 3 more vehicles were parked nearby. Vera's men hauled Emily out. Her legs nearly buckled, but she forced them steady. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her weak. They walked her to the cabin. Inside was sparse. A few pieces of furniture, a wood stove, windows covered with newspaper. A folding table had been set up in the center with 2 chairs. On the table, a laptop, several files, and a handgun. Vera gestured to one chair. Sit. Emily sat. Her wrists were still bound, but they'd positioned her hands in front now, probably to avoid permanent nerve damage. Practical. Vera took the other chair, opening the laptop. Let's discuss your future employment. I'm not working for you. You say that now. But circumstances change perspective. Vera turned the laptop so Emily could see the screen. This is a live feed from Redwood Valley Medical Center, your former workplace. The image showed the hospital's main entrance. Staff coming and going, normal morning activity. Emily's pulse quickened. What about it? We have people inside. 3 of them. Positioned in critical areas. They're not carrying weapons. Nothing obvious. Just small devices similar to the one you disabled last night. Except these are armed. And they're waiting for my signal. Emily's blood went cold. You're lying. Am I? Vera pulled up another window. 3 separate camera feeds. The ER. The ICU. The pediatric wing. In each feed, Emily could see a small backpack left in an inconspicuous corner, the kind of bag a visitor might forget, but she knew what was inside. You said the canisters didn't exist, Emily said quietly. The one at Central Station didn't. These do. Vera's voice remained calm. We have 300 people in that hospital right now. Patients, staff, visitors. All of them will die if you refuse to cooperate. Brooks will find them. He'll sweep the building. In how long? An hour? 2? Even if he starts immediately, those devices are well hidden and designed to resist standard detection methods. Vera leaned forward. But you could tell him exactly where they are. You could save everyone. All you have to do is complete one assignment. Emily's mind raced. If Vera was telling the truth, the hospital was a ticking bomb. But if Emily cooperated, she became complicit in whatever operation Vera had planned, and there was no guarantee Vera would keep her word. "What's the assignment?" Emily asked. "There's a medical research facility 2 hours from here. They're developing a prototype nerve agent for defensive military applications. We need a sample, 20 milliliters, enough to reverse engineer. You want me to steal chemical weapons? Well, we want you to acquire a sample using your medical credentials and expertise. The facility is highly secured, but you have the skills to bypass their protocols." "And if I refuse?" Vera touched a key on the laptop. One of the backpacks on screen began emitting a soft beeping sound. A nurse walked past it, oblivious. "Then I activate the devices remotely. 300 people die, and their blood is on your hands." Emily stared at the screen, watched the nurse disappear around a corner, saw a patient being wheeled past the backpack in the pediatric wing. A child, maybe 8 years old. She thought about Brooks, about his team sweeping Central Station for a threat that didn't exist, about how long it would take him to realize he'd been misdirected, to mobilize to the hospital, to find 3 hidden devices in a building that size. Vera was right. They didn't have time. "How do I know you'll disarm them?" Emily asked. "After I get you the sample." "You don't. But you know that we need you functional and cooperative for future operations. Killing hundreds of people accomplishes nothing except making you useless to us. Bad business." "Future operations? You didn't think this was a one-time arrangement? We have dozens of high-value targets that require your specific skill set, facilities, personnel, information. You're an investment, Emily. We plan to use you extensively." Emily's jaw clenched. "So I'm just supposed to become your personal asset? Steal and kill on command? You're supposed to stay alive and keep others alive. Everything else is details." The gun on the table seemed to pulse in Emily's peripheral vision. It was positioned just slightly closer to Vera than to her. Intentional placement, a test maybe, to see if Emily would try something stupid. Emily looked back at the laptop. The feeds from the hospital continued. Normal activity. People living their lives, unaware of the threat lurking in corners. She thought about Marie, about Cassie, about all the staff who'd watched her get arrested and done nothing. Then she thought about the patients, the children, people who had nothing to do with any of this. "I need proof the devices are real," Emily said. Vera typed something. One of the screens shifted angles slightly, revealing more of the backpack's interior through a gap in the zipper. Emily could see the outline of a canister, the same design as the one she'd disabled. Satisfied? No. Emily wasn't satisfied, but she was out of options. "If I do this," she said slowly, "you disarm all 3 devices immediately after I deliver the sample. Not before, not after, immediately." "Agreed. And you release me. No future operations. This is the only job." Vera smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "We can discuss terms after you prove reliable." "That's not an agreement. It's the only one you're getting." Vera closed the laptop. "You have 60 seconds to decide. After that, I activate the first device. Then we see how long your conscience takes to break." Emily's hands clenched. The zip ties cut into her wrists. Her shoulder throbbed despite the medication. Every instinct screamed at her to find a way out, to fight, to refuse. But 300 people, 300 lives. "Fine," Emily said. "I'll do it." Vera nodded to one of her men. He cut Emily's zip ties. Blood rushed back into her hands, painful and prickling. "Smart choice," Vera said. "We leave in 10 minutes. Sergei will brief you on the facility layout during transport." Emily rubbed her wrists, thinking fast. She needed to buy time, needed to get a message to Brooks somehow, but her phone was gone, taken during the extraction. She was completely cut off. Unless... "I'll need equipment," Emily said. "Medical supplies. If I'm going to pass as legitimate personnel, I need the right gear." Vera considered this. "What kind of supplies?" "Standard field kit, surgical instruments, credentials that will pass security screening. We have credentials prepared. As for equipment, Vera gestured to Sergei. He left the cabin, returning minutes later with a black case, the same case the police had confiscated from Emily's car, her field kit. We recovered this from evidence lockup, Vera said. Useful, yes? Emily opened the case. Everything was there. Scalpels, sutures, hemostatic agents, and tucked into a hidden compartment that even careful inspection might miss. A small GPS beacon. Military grade. The kind that sent encrypted location pings to authorized receivers. Brooks had authorized access. She'd made sure of it when she left service, a safety measure she'd never expected to use. The beacon was still there. Inactive, but there. Emily's heart raced, but she kept her face neutral. This will work. She closed the case carefully, making sure not to draw attention to the beacon. She'd need to activate it without Vera noticing, find the right moment when eyes were elsewhere. They loaded into one of the vehicles, a nondescript panel van. Emily sat in the back with Sergei and another operative. Vera took the front passenger seat. The driver pulled out of the clearing, heading deeper into the forest before emerging onto a rural highway. Sergei spread out blueprints on a small folding table. The facility is disguised as a pharmaceutical research lab, civilian front, but underground levels house the actual weapons development. Emily studied the plans. 3 floors above ground, 2 below. Security checkpoints at every transition, biometric scanners, armed guards. How am I supposed to get past all this, she asked. You'll enter as Dr. Sarah Vance, consulting specialist from the Department of Defense. Your credentials will grant you access to the 2nd underground level. That's where the samples are stored. And the guards? We'll be expecting you. We've inserted the appointment into their scheduling system. You'll have a 30-minute window. Emily's mind worked through the scenario. It was tight, but possible. The credentials would get her in. Her medical background would provide cover for any questions. The challenge was getting out with the sample without triggering lockdown, and activating the beacon without being noticed. The drive took 90 minutes. They stopped at a rest area 10 miles from the target facility. Vera handed Emily a badge and a tablet loaded with fake credentials. You have everything you need, Vera said. Sergei will drive you to the facility entrance. You go in alone, acquire the sample, return to the vehicle. Simple. And if something goes wrong, then people at the hospital die while you're dealing with the consequences. Don't let something go wrong. Emily took the badge, clipped it to her shirt, then she picked up her field kit, hands steady despite the fear climbing her spine. This was her chance. She just had to take it. Sergei drove her the final distance in a sedan. The facility appeared exactly as the blueprint showed, modern glass and steel facade with pharmaceutical company logos. Nothing about it screamed military installation. Sergei stopped at the entrance. 30 minutes. If you're not back, I call Vera. She activates the devices. Emily nodded, stepped out of the car, walked toward the entrance with her badge visible and her field kit in hand. The security guard at the front desk barely glanced at her credentials, just scanned the badge and waved her through. Too easy. Vera's people had done their homework. Emily took the elevator to the 2nd underground level. Her badge granted access without issue. The doors opened onto a sterile white corridor, cameras in every corner. She walked with purpose, like she belonged. The sample storage was at the end of the hall. Another security checkpoint. A guard stood outside, armed but relaxed. Dr. Vance? Emily said, showing her badge. I have a 10 o'clock appointment to review sample protocols. The guard checked his tablet, nodded. Go ahead. Storage room 3. Inside, rows of refrigerated units lined the walls, each one labeled with codes Emily didn't recognize. But she knew what she was looking for: nerve agent prototypes, experimental compounds. She found the section marked with biohazard symbols, pulled on gloves from her kit, located a vial matching the description Vera had given her, 20 milliliters, clear liquid, deadly. Emily's hands moved on autopilot. She transferred the sample to a secure container in her kit, logged the removal in the facility's digital system using her fake credentials. Everything by the book. Then she reached into the hidden compartment of her kit, found the GPS beacon. It was the size of a quarter, flat and magnetic. She activated it with a press, felt the brief vibration confirming transmission. Then she attached it to the underside of the metal storage unit where no one would find it unless they were specifically looking. The beacon would ping her location every 30 seconds. Brooks would see it, would know exactly where she'd been, and if she moved, he'd track that too. It wasn't much, but it was something. Emily closed her kit, walked out of the storage room. The guard didn't even look up. She was back in the sedan within 25 minutes. Sergei pulled away from the facility without a word. Emily sat in the back seat, kit on her lap, pretending calm while her heart hammered. The beacon was active. Brooks would get the signal, but how long before he could respond? An hour? 2? She had to buy time. They drove back to the hunting cabin. Vera was waiting outside, phone in hand. "Show me," she said. Emily opened the kit, displayed the sample container. Vera examined it carefully, then nodded. "Good work. Now we see if you're worth the investment." She pulled out her phone, opened an app. Emily could see the hospital feeds on the screen. Vera's finger hovered over a button. "Wait," Emily said. "You promised to disarm them." "I promised to disarm them immediately after delivery. You've delivered. Now I'm disarming." Vera pressed the button. On screen, the backpacks in all 3 locations emitted a soft chime. The beeping stopped. Status indicators changed from red to green. Emily's legs nearly gave out. "They're really disarmed?" "They are. See? I'm a woman of my word." Vera pocketed the phone. "Now, let's discuss your next assignment." "No, the deal was one job. I'm done." Vera's expression hardened. "The deal was whatever I say it is. You're an asset now. You work when I tell you to work." "I'm not your asset. I'm—" The sound of helicopters cut through the air, distant but approaching fast. Vera's head snapped up. Her men scrambled, weapons rising. Through the trees, Emily could see movement. Vehicles, military vehicles. Brooks. The beacon had worked. Vera's eyes went to Emily, cold fury replacing the calculated calm. "What did you do?" "I activated a tracker in my field kit. Brooks has been following us for the last hour." Vera moved fast, grabbed the gun from inside the cabin, pressed it against Emily's temple. "Tell them to back off or you die right here." Emily met her eyes. "They won't back off, and you won't shoot." "I'm too valuable, remember? Your investment." For a moment, Vera hesitated. Just a second. That was all Emily needed. She twisted hard, dropping low. Her injured shoulder screamed, but she ignored it. Swept Vera's legs. The gun went off, deafening, the shot going wild. Then Brooks's team was everywhere. Tactical operators pouring out of the trees, weapons trained, voices shouting commands in English and Russian. Vera's men dropped their weapons. Hands up. It was over in seconds. Brooks appeared, weapon raised, moving toward Emily. "You okay?" "Yeah." Emily stood slowly, cradling her shoulder. "I'm okay." Vera was on the ground, 2 operators holding her down. She looked up at Emily with something between rage and respect. "This isn't finished," Vera said quietly. "Yes," Emily replied. "It is." Brooks' team secured the scene. Vera and her operatives were cuffed and loaded into armored transports. The stolen nerve agent sample was secured in a hazmat container. The hunting cabin was marked for evidence collection. Brooks walked Emily to one of the medical units. A field medic checked her shoulder, administered fresh pain medication, fitted her with a proper sling. "How did you find me?" Emily asked. "Your beacon. We picked up the signal 90 minutes ago, tracked you to the research facility, then here." Brooks's jaw was tight. "When I saw where you'd been, what they made you do, I didn't have a choice." "I know. But stealing classified military compounds, that's going to take some explaining." Emily nodded. She'd expected as much. There would be debriefings, investigations, questions about why she'd cooperated with known terrorists even under duress. But she was alive, and the hospital was safe. That was enough. Brooks's radio crackled. "Commander, we've got a problem." He keyed the mic. "What kind of problem?" "The devices at the hospital. We've examined them. They're not armed. They never were." Emily's blood went cold. "What?" The voice continued. "They're decoys, empty canisters with fake timers, no chemical payload, no dispersal mechanism. Just props." Brooks looked at Emily. She could see her own realization reflected in his face. The hospital had never been in danger. The devices were fake, just like Central Station, which meant Vera had played her again. "Why?" Emily whispered. If they were fake, why the whole setup? Brooks' expression darkened. Because they needed you to steal that sample, needed you to do it willingly, thinking you were saving lives. That way, when this goes to trial, you're complicit. You're not just a victim. You're an accomplice. Emily felt sick. She'd taken the bait completely, walked into a federal research facility and stolen classified weapons material because she thought hundreds of lives depended on it. And it had all been theater. "They're going to charge me," she said quietly. "I don't know, maybe, but we'll figure it out." Brooks put a hand on her good shoulder. "You were operating under duress, under false information. Any reasonable prosecutor will see that." Emily wanted to believe him, but she'd been in the system long enough to know that reasonable wasn't guaranteed. The transport helicopter arrived 20 minutes later. Emily was loaded on with Brooks and his team. Vera was in a separate bird, heavily guarded. As they lifted off, Emily looked down at the forest, at the cabin where she'd made impossible choices, at the clearing where she'd been given no good options. She'd survived. But the cost was still being calculated. The flight back to the city took an hour. They landed at a military airfield where federal agents were waiting. Brooks argued with them for 10 minutes before finally stepping aside. "Ms. Harper," one of the agents said, "we need you to come with us. You're not under arrest, but we have questions about your activities in the last 12 hours. Emily nodded. She'd expected this too. They put her in an unmarked sedan, drove her to a federal building downtown, took her to an interview room with cameras and recording equipment. For the next 6 hours, Emily told them everything. The arrest, the hospital, the warehouse, the federal facility, the hunting cabin, every detail she could remember. The agents took notes, asked questions, verified her story against Brooks' report. Finally, the lead investigator leaned back. "Ms. Harper, you're aware that you entered a classified research facility under false pretenses and removed controlled substances?" "Yes. That's a federal crime." "I know, but I was told that hundreds of people would die if I didn't comply." "And you believed that?" "I saw video evidence, live feeds. I made a judgment call based on the information available." The investigator studied her for a long moment. "We'll need to verify your account. In the meantime, you're released on your own recognizance. Don't leave the city." Emily stood. Her legs were shaking, but she kept her face neutral. They processed her out, gave her back her personal effects. Her phone had 37 missed calls, most from numbers she didn't recognize. 3 from Brooks. She called him back. "Harper, where are you?" "Federal building downtown. They just released me." "Good. Listen, we've got a development. Vera's talking." Emily's pulse quickened. "What's she saying?" "She's offering a deal. Full disclosure of Volkov's operations in exchange for reduced charges." "And?" "And she specifically requested that you be present for the debriefing." Emily's stomach turned. "Why?" "She won't say. Just that she'll only talk if you're in the room." Emily closed her eyes. Even in custody, Vera was playing games, still manipulating, still pulling strings. "When?" Emily asked. "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, Federal Detention Center." "I'll be there." She hung up, stood on the steps of the federal building, watching the city move around her. Normal people living normal lives, none of them knowing how close they'd come to disaster. Her phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. Her heart stopped. She opened it. "Well played, Emily. You're more resourceful than I expected, but this game isn't over. Not by a long shot. See you tomorrow." Emily stared at the screen. Vera was in federal custody, under guard. How was she sending texts unless she had help? Someone on the outside, someone who was still watching. Emily looked around the crowded street. Business people, students, delivery drivers. Any of them could be Volkov's people. Any of them could be watching right now. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. This time a photo. Brooks. Walking into the military airfield command building. Time stamped 15 minutes ago. The message beneath it read, "Everyone you care about is a piece on the board. Remember that when we meet tomorrow." Emily stared at the photo of Brooks until her vision blurred. Then she called him. 3 rings before he picked up. "Harper, what?" "Get somewhere secure. Right now." The urgency in her voice cut through whatever he'd been about to say. She heard movement, a door closing, Then silence. "Talk to me," Brooks said. "Vera just sent me a photo of you, taken 15 minutes ago. She's got eyes on you." Brooks swore. "I'm in a secure facility. How?" "I don't know, but she's got help on the outside, someone with access." Emily's mind raced. "The meet tomorrow is a setup, has to be." "Then we cancel it." "No. If we cancel, she goes silent and we lose our only lead to the rest of Volkov's network." Emily started walking, scanning faces around her. "We go. But we control the environment. No federal detention center, somewhere we choose. Harper, if she's got people watching us, then we use that. Let them watch us set the trap." There was a pause. Then Brooks said, "What do you have in mind?" Emily told him. 20 minutes later, she was in an unmarked SUV with Brooks and two of his most trusted operators. They drove to a location Brooks had used before, a decommissioned military warehouse on the outskirts of the city. No official records, no digital footprint, the kind of place that didn't exist on any map. "We bring her here," Emily said as they walked through the empty space. "Just you, me, and her. Everyone else stays outside. 3 entrances, all controlled. If her people try anything, your team locks them down." Brooks nodded slowly. "And what's your play inside?" "I get her talking, make her think she's still in control. Then I turn it on her." "How?" Emily met his eyes. "By giving her exactly what she wants." Brooks looked skeptical, but he didn't argue. He knew Emily well enough by now to trust her instincts. They spent the next hour setting up. Brooks's team positioned themselves at strategic points around the warehouse. Cameras were installed, but carefully, hidden well enough that Vera's people wouldn't spot them immediately. Emily walked the space, memorizing sightlines and exit points. By midnight, everything was ready. Brooks made the call to federal detention. "We're moving the debriefing. New location. I'll send coordinates 1 hour before the meet." The agent on the other end protested, but Brooks pulled rank. Military authorization overrode civilian jurisdiction. The transfer was approved. Emily tried to sleep that night but couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Vera's cold smile. Heard her voice on the phone, calm and calculating. Felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down. At 6 in the morning, she gave up. Made coffee. Stood at her apartment window watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, Volkov's people were watching. Waiting. Let them watch. Her phone buzzed. Brooks. "We're moving in 1 hour, you ready?" "Yeah." "Harper. Whatever happens in there, don't let her get in your head." "She's already in my head, Brooks. That's why this is going to work." At 8 o'clock, the armored transport arrived at the warehouse. Emily watched from inside as 6 federal agents escorted Vera out. She was in restraints, hands cuffed in front, ankles chained. But she walked with the same confidence as before, like the chains were optional accessories. Brooks's team cleared the agents back. Just as planned, only Brooks and Emily would be in the room with Vera. They walked her inside, sat her in a metal chair bolted to the floor in the center of the empty warehouse. Emily stood 10 feet away. Brooks positioned himself near the door. Vera looked around the space with mild interest. Dramatic choice of venue, very cinematic. "You said you'd only talk if I was here," Emily said. "I'm here. Talk." Vera's eyes settled on her. "You look tired. Didn't sleep well?" "I slept fine." "Liar. You spent the night wondering if this is another trap, wondering what I'm really after." Vera smiled. "Smart. It is a trap, but not the kind you think." Emily crossed her arms. "Then what kind?" "The kind where everyone gets what they want. I give you Volkov's entire operation, locations, personnel, inventory. You give me a deal that keeps me out of a supermax cell for the rest of my life. Everyone wins, except the people your organization killed. Collateral damage. Unfortunate but inevitable in any business with this level of complexity." Vera leaned back as much as the chains allowed. "You of all people should understand that. How many people died because of decisions you made in uniform? Operations you ran? Intelligence you provided?" Emily's jaw tightened. "That was different." "Was it?" "You followed orders, did what you were told, people died. I follow profit margins. Do what makes sense financially. People die. The only difference is the flag you salute." Brooks shifted near the door. Emily could feel his tension. "You're stalling," Emily said. "If you wanted to make a deal, you would have done it already. What do you really want? Vera's smile widened. There it is. The operator underneath the nurse. I knew she was still in there. She leaned forward. What I want is for you to understand something, Emily. You think you've won, captured the villain, saved the day, but you're missing the bigger picture. Which is? That I'm not the villain. I'm a symptom. Vera's voice dropped lower. Volkov's network exists because there's demand. Governments want weapons they can deny. Corporations want competitors eliminated quietly. Individuals want protection from threats the law can't touch. We provide services. We fill a need. You're a murderer. I'm a businesswoman. And business is booming precisely because people like you exist. Emily frowned. What does that mean? It means every time you play hero, every time you save lives and stop attacks and capture criminals, you prove to the world that threats are real, that danger exists, that people need protection. Well, Vera's eyes glittered. And when people feel threatened, they buy what we're selling. You're our best advertisement, Emily. Every victory you win makes our services more valuable. The words hit like a physical blow. Emily had never thought about it that way, never considered that her actions might be feeding the very system she was trying to dismantle. You're wrong, Emily said, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Look at what happened in the last 24 hours. You stopped a chemical attack at the hospital, prevented mass casualties, made the news as a hero. And what's the first thing every hospital administrator in the country is going to do? Vera paused. Upgrade security, hire private contractors, buy detection equipment, all of which creates market demand that people like us exploit. Brooks spoke up. You're trying to justify mass murder with economics? I'm explaining how the world actually works. Vera turned her attention to him. You know it's true, Commander. Your entire career exists because threats exist. If everyone suddenly decided to cooperate and be peaceful, you'd be unemployed. That's a cynical way to look at... It's a realistic way. Cynicism is just realism without the self-deception. Vera looked back at Emily. Which brings me to my actual offer. I'm listening. I'll give you everything. Every name, every location, every operation currently in motion. You'll dismantle 90% of Volkov's network within 6 months. Emily's eyes narrowed. In exchange for what? Freedom, full immunity, witness protection. Not happening, Brooks said immediately. Wait. Vera held up her cuffed hands. Let me finish. You dismantle the network, take down hundreds of operatives, save thousands of lives, massive victory for law and order. But here's what you need to understand. It won't matter. Within a year, someone else will fill the void. The demand doesn't disappear just because the supply is interrupted. You'll be fighting the same war in different packaging. So we should just let you go? Emily's voice was hard. Let you walk away? No, you should use me. Vera's expression turned serious. I know this world. Know how it operates. Know how to predict the next threat before it materializes. Keep me in controlled detention. Use me as a consultant. I help you stop attacks before they happen. In exchange, I live in a comfortable facility instead of a concrete box. Emily stared at her. The offer was insane, but also, horrifyingly, it made a kind of sense. Vera had insight into a world that most law enforcement couldn't penetrate. She could potentially save lives, but at what cost? You expect us to trust you? Emily asked. I expect you to use me. Trust has nothing to do with it. Vera shifted in her chair. Think strategically, Emily. You're standing at a crossroads. You can send me to prison and feel righteous about it, or you can leverage an asset that gives you an advantage in a war you're currently losing. Brooks's radio crackled softly. He stepped aside, listening. His face changed. Harper, we've got movement outside. 3 vehicles. Unknown occupants. Emily's pulse jumped. Vera's people? Possible. My team is moving to intercept. Vera smiled. Right on schedule. Emily spun toward her. What did you do? I told you this was a trap, just not for you. Vera's eyes glittered. My people aren't here to rescue me. They're here to eliminate me. Brooks moved fast, weapon drawn. Explain. Now. Volkov's leadership knows I've been captured, knows I have information that could expose the entire network. They can't risk me talking, deal or no deal. Vera's voice remained calm. So they're going to kill me, and probably everyone else in this building to cover their tracks. Outside, gunfire erupted. Automatic weapons. Brooks's team returning fire. Brooks grabbed his radio. All units, fall back to defensive positions. Protect the primary structure. Emily's mind raced. If Vera was telling the truth, this warehouse was about to become a war zone. If she was lying, this was an elaborate escape attempt. Either way, they were trapped. How many? Emily demanded. At least 20, maybe 30. Well armed, well trained? Vera looked at Emily. This is the part where you decide if I'm worth keeping alive. More gunfire, closer now. Brooks moved to the door, coordinating with his team over the radio. The warehouse had 3 entrances and limited cover. They were outnumbered. Emily made a decision. She crossed to Vera, pulled a small key from her pocket, the one Brooks had given her as a backup, and unlocked the ankle restraints. What are you doing? Brooks shouted. If she dies, we lose everything she knows. If we keep her alive, we have leverage. Emily hauled Vera to her feet. Can you shoot? Vera's smile was genuine this time. Better than you, probably. Brooks tossed her a sidearm. You try anything? I know. You'll put a bullet in me yourself. Vera checked the weapon with practiced efficiency. I'm motivated to cooperate, Commander. Self-preservation is a powerful incentive. The main door exploded inward, breaching charge. Smoke and debris filled the air. Figures moved through the haze, tactical gear, assault rifles, moving with military precision. Brooks opened fire. 2 hostiles dropped. The rest scattered, taking cover behind equipment and support columns. Emily grabbed Vera's arm, pulling her toward the back of the warehouse where there was better cover. A storage area with metal shelving units that could stop small arms fire. Bullets tore through the air around them. Emily's training kicked in completely. She moved without thinking, muscle memory from operations she'd tried to forget. Acquired a rifle from a downed hostile. Returned fire with controlled bursts. Vera fought beside her, moving with the same fluid efficiency. Whatever else she was a soldier, had been for decades. There's an exit, Vera shouted over the gunfire. East wall, service door, leads to an alley. How do you know that? Because I had people scout this location last night. I knew my employers would make a move, needed an escape route. Emily risked a glance at Brooks. He was pinned down near the main door, trading fire with at least 6 hostiles. His team was outside, unable to reach him without exposing themselves to crossfire. They were losing. Emily's mind worked through scenarios. They couldn't hold this position indefinitely. Ammunition was limited, reinforcements would take too long. They needed to break the siege, or change the game entirely. Brooks, Emily shouted. We're moving to the east exit. Provide covering fire. Harper, you can't. Trust me. She didn't wait for his response. Grabbed Vera and ran for the service door, firing behind her as she moved. Vera kept pace, laying down suppressing fire that was startlingly accurate. They hit the door hard. It was locked. Emily shot the mechanism, kicked it open. The alley beyond was narrow and dark, empty except for a dumpster and scattered debris. Now what? Vera asked. Now we draw them out. Emily keyed her phone, dialing a number from memory. Federal Emergency Response. This is Emily Harper. I'm at the following coordinates. Active shooter situation. Multiple casualties. Need immediate response. She hung up before they could ask questions. Vera understood immediately. You're betting they'll retreat when law enforcement arrives. They won't risk a prolonged engagement with federal agents. Too much exposure. Smart. Assuming they care about exposure. They do. Otherwise, they would have just bombed the building. Behind them, the gunfire intensified. Then, suddenly, stopped. Voices shouting in Russian. Tactical retreat. Emily and Vera stayed in the alley, weapons ready. Seconds passed. A minute. Then sirens. Distant, but approaching fast. Brooks's voice crackled over Emily's phone. Harper, you alive? Yeah. You? Barely. They're pulling back. What did you do? Called in reinforcements. Federal response units are 2 minutes out. Jesus Christ, Harper. But there was relief in his voice. The hostile forces melted away before the authorities arrived. By the time federal agents swarmed the warehouse, the only people left were Brooks's team and 3 downed hostiles, and Emily, standing in an alley with the most wanted criminal consultant in federal custody. Federal agents secured the scene. Paramedics treated Brooks's team for minor injuries. Crime scene investigators documented everything. and Emily found herself in another interrogation room, different building, same questions. But this time, the lead investigator was someone she recognized, Deputy Director Marcus Holt, Federal Counterterrorism. She'd worked with him once, years ago, on a joint operation overseas. "Ms. Harper," Holt said, sitting across from her, "you've had quite the week." "That's an understatement." "You're aware that you unlocked a federal prisoner during an active combat situation?" "I am." "That's a serious violation of protocol." "I made a tactical decision to preserve a valuable intelligence asset." Emily met his eyes. "If Vera had died in that firefight, we'd have lost our only lead to Volkov's entire operation." Holt studied her for a long moment. "Commander Brooks says the same thing. So does Vera, interestingly." "She's cooperative?" "Very. She's been talking for 3 hours straight. Names, dates, locations, financial records. More intelligence than we've gathered in 5 years of investigations." Holt leaned back. "Which raises an interesting question. Why is she being so helpful?" Emily thought about Vera's words in the warehouse, about self-preservation, about playing angles. "Because she knows the game is over," Emily said quietly. "Her employers tried to kill her. That ended any loyalty she might have had. Now she's cutting a deal to survive." "And you believe she'll honor that deal?" "I believe she'll honor it as long as it serves her interests." "Which means someone needs to make sure her interests stay aligned with ours." Holt nodded slowly. "Which brings me to why I wanted to talk to you personally. We're forming a task force, specialized unit to dismantle Volkov's network using the intelligence Vera provides. We need someone with your background, your skills." Emily's breath caught. "You're offering me a job?" "Consulting position, federal contract. You'd work directly with Brooks's team, coordinate operations, assess chemical threats, leverage your medical and tactical expertise." "I'm a nurse." "You're a former military operator with specialized training in chemical warfare and field operations. The nursing is what you chose to do after, but we need what you were before." Emily looked down at her hands. They'd stopped shaking somewhere between the warehouse firefight and this moment. She'd been running from her past for 3 years, tried to bury the operator underneath the nurse, pretend that person didn't exist anymore. But Vera had been right about one thing. That person was still in there, had never really left. The question was whether Emily wanted to let her back out. "I need to think about it," Emily said. Holt nodded. "Take your time, but not too much. This offer expires in 48 hours. He left her alone in the room. Emily sat in silence, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marie at the hospital. "Everyone's talking about you. About what you did. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for not speaking up when you were arrested. You deserved better. We all should have done better." Emily read the message 3 times, then she typed a response. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Another text, this one from Brooks. "Harper, whenever you're done with the feds, meet me at the hospital. There's something you need to see." She took a car service to Redwood Valley Medical Center. It was late afternoon, the shift change creating its usual controlled chaos. Emily walked through the main entrance and felt dozens of eyes turned toward her. But this time, the looks weren't dismissive, weren't indifferent. They were respectful. Some even grateful. Marie met her at the nurse's station. "Emily, Commander Brooks is in the conference room, and—" She hesitated. "The hospital administrator wants to speak with you." Emily's stomach tightened. "About what?" "I don't know, but it didn't sound bad." Brooks was waiting in the conference room with 3 other people. A woman in an expensive suit, probably the administrator. A man in military uniform with stars on his shoulders. And a civilian in a dark suit with federal credentials clipped to his belt. "Ms. Harper," the woman in the suit said, standing. "I'm Patricia Hendricks, hospital administrator. This is General Morrison and Agent Caldwell from Homeland Security." Emily shook hands mechanically. "What's this about?" General Morrison spoke first. "Ms. Harper, we've spent the last day reviewing your service record, the unredacted version, your work in chemical threat assessment, your field operations, your crisis response training. Okay. We're here to formally clear you of any wrongdoing related to the theft of controlled substances from the Federal Research Facility. Given the circumstances, the coercion, the false intelligence, the threat to civilian lives, No charges will be filed. Emily felt something unclench in her chest. Thank you. Agent Caldwell continued. Furthermore, the intelligence you helped secure from Vera Volkov has already led to 3 major arrests and the prevention of 2 planned attacks. Your actions, while unorthodox, resulted in significant operational success. I appreciate that, but Patricia Hendricks interrupted. Miss Harper, I owe you an apology. This hospital failed you. When you were detained, when you tried to warn us about the patient, when you asked for support, we dismissed you, ignored you, treated you as expendable. Her voice was steady, but Emily could hear the shame underneath. That was inexcusable, and I want you to know that we're implementing new protocols to ensure it never happens again. What kind of protocols? Mandatory training on recognizing expertise beyond job titles, enhanced security procedures, better communication between departments. Hendricks paused. And I'd like to offer you a position. Director of Emergency Response. You'd coordinate between civilian and military medical operations, train staff on chemical threat recognition, essentially ensure that if something like this happens again, we're prepared. Emily blinked. You want me to stay? I want you to lead. You've proven you have skills this hospital desperately needs, skills we were too blind to recognize before. General Morrison added, this would be in addition to the federal consulting position. You'd split time between hospital operations and task force activities. Unprecedented arrangement, but then again, you're an unprecedented asset. Emily looked at Brooks. He gave a small nod, supporting whatever choice she made. She thought about the last 3 years, the quiet shifts, the anonymous work, the attempt to be ordinary. Then she thought about the last 48 hours, the crisis, the decisions, the feeling of being exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was built to do. I need one thing, Emily said quietly. Hendricks leaned forward. Name it. No more being invisible. If I do this, if I take this position, people need to know why I'm qualified, what I bring, who I am. I won't be dismissed again. Agreed. Completely. Emily took a breath, then nodded. Okay, I'll do it. The meeting ended with handshakes and paperwork. Emily would start the new position in 2 weeks. Time to process everything. Time to prepare. As everyone filed out, Brooks stayed behind. You made the right choice, he said. Did I? Or did I just sign up for more impossible situations? Probably both. Brooks smiled slightly. But at least you'll be doing it on your own terms this time. Emily nodded. That was something. They walked out of the conference room together. The hospital was settling into evening routine. Dinner carts rolling through hallways, visiting hours winding down. The familiar rhythm of medical care continuing regardless of external chaos. In the ER, Emily saw Cassie working a trauma case, the young nurse who'd been terrified during the chemical threat. She was calm now, focused, doing her job. Dr. Kessler was gone, of course, arrested, facing charges, his career destroyed by choices made under pressure and fear. Emily didn't feel sorry for him. He'd endangered lives. But she understood how it happened, how fast things could spiral when you made one wrong call. Marie waved from across the nurses' station. Emily waved back. They're going to treat you differently now, Brooks said quietly. I know. You okay with that? Emily thought about it. For 3 years, she'd wanted to be invisible, wanted to disappear into the background and just exist without the weight of her past. But maybe that had been the wrong goal. Maybe the point wasn't to hide what you were. Maybe it was to own it, to use it, to make it mean something. Yeah, Emily said. I'm okay with that. 1 week later, Emily stood in the parking lot where she'd been detained. Same asphalt, same lights, same hospital entrance. But everything was different. Officer Dalton's patrol car was gone. He'd been suspended pending investigation. The younger officer who'd searched her vehicle had resigned. Brennan, the security guard who'd started it all, had been fired. Not because Emily had demanded it, but because the review board had found systematic failures in protocol. People had made assumptions, acted on bias, ignored evidence. The system was being corrected. Slowly. Imperfectly. But corrected. Emily's new office was on the 3rd floor. Corner space with windows overlooking the city. A desk, a computer, and a plaque that read Director of Emergency Response. On her first official day, she held a training session for the entire hospital staff: doctors, nurses, technicians, administrators, everyone. She stood in front of them and told her story. Not all of it. Some things remained classified. But enough. Enough for them to understand who she was, what she'd done, why she was qualified to lead. Respect isn't something you get because of a title, Emily said, looking out at the faces watching her. It's something you earn through competence, through courage, through showing up when it matters and doing the work that needs to be done. Some of you saw me get arrested in that parking lot, saw me treated like a criminal, and you said nothing. The room was silent. I'm not here to blame you for that, Emily continued. I'm here to make sure it doesn't happen again. Not to me, not to anyone. We're going to build a system where expertise is recognized, where people are valued for what they can contribute, not just what their job description says, where when someone raises a concern, we listen. She paused. And we're going to be ready for the next crisis, for the next impossible situation, because there will be one. There always is. But next time we'll face it together, as a team that knows what each person brings to the table. The applause started slowly, then grew. By the time Emily finished, the entire room was on their feet. It wasn't absolution, wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement, recognition. It was enough. That evening, Emily drove to a small apartment across town, federal safe house where Vera was being held under controlled detention. The deal had gone through. Immunity in exchange for intelligence. Comfortable confinement instead of a maximum security cell. The guards let Emily in. She found Vera sitting by a window reading a book. Miss Harper, Vera said without looking up. Come to check on your investment? Something like that. Vera closed the book. You took the job. Both jobs, I hear. How do you know that? I still have sources, limited but functional. Vera gestured to a chair. Sit. Let's talk. Emily sat. About what? About what happens next. You're going to dismantle Volkov's network, going to chase down every lead I give you, going to feel like you're winning. And we won't be? You'll be winning battles. But the war? Vera shook her head. The war never ends, Emily. I told you that. Someone always fills the void. Maybe. But every battle matters. Every life saved counts. Does it? Or are you just delaying the inevitable? Emily met her eyes. I don't know, but I'd rather delay it than surrender to it. Vera smiled. There she is. The operator who doesn't quit, who keeps fighting even when the fight seems pointless. She leaned forward. That's why you'll be effective in this role. That's why they chose you. Not because you're the most skilled, not because you're the smartest, but because you don't give up, even when you should. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Whether it's a compliment depends on how you use it. Emily stood. I should go. One more thing. Vera's voice stopped her at the door. The officer who arrested you, Dalton, he's facing charges now, yes? Yes? And you feel satisfied, vindicated? Emily thought about it. I feel like justice was served. Justice. Vera laughed softly. Such a flexible word. It means whatever we need it to mean in the moment. You call it justice when your enemies are punished. They call it persecution. Both of you are right from your own perspectives. What's your point? My point is that you're still thinking in binary terms, good and evil, right and wrong, justice and injustice. The world is more complicated than that. The sooner you accept it, the more effective you'll be. Emily looked at her for a long moment. You're wrong about one thing, Vera. I don't think in binaries anymore. I learned that the hard way over the last week. The world is complicated. People make impossible choices under impossible circumstances. But that doesn't mean we stop trying to do better, to be better. Noble sentiment. Maybe. But it's the only one worth holding on to. Emily left the safe house and drove back to her apartment. It was late. The city glowed with artificial light, millions of people living their lives in the spaces between crisis and calm. Her phone buzzed. Message from Brooks. Task force briefing tomorrow, 800. We've got 3 high-priority targets based on Vera's intel. Welcome to the team, Harper. Emily smiled. Then she typed a response. "See you there." She set the phone down and looked out her window at the city. Somewhere out there, threats were brewing, plans were being made, people were preparing to do terrible things. But somewhere out there, people like Brooks and his team were preparing to stop them. People like Marie and Cassie were learning to recognize danger and respond to it. People were building systems that valued competence over assumptions. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was better than silence, better than invisibility, better than accepting that nothing could change. Emily thought about the woman who'd been handcuffed in a parking lot just days ago, dismissed, underestimated, treated like she was nobody. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone who knew exactly who she was, what she was capable of, what she was worth, and that knowledge was the most powerful weapon of all. 3 months later, the task force had dismantled 15 cells of Volkov's network, prevented 4 major attacks, saved an estimated 2,000 lives. Emily split her time between the hospital and field operations. Trained staff on chemical threat recognition, consulted on crisis response protocols, led missions when her specific expertise was needed. The media started calling her the Silent Guardian. Emily hated the nickname, but understood why it stuck. She didn't seek attention, didn't give interviews, just did the work. But the people who mattered knew. Her team, her colleagues, the patients whose lives were saved because someone finally listened when she spoke. Officer Dalton was convicted of misconduct and false arrest, sentenced to 2 years. Dr. Kessler received 5 years for his role in facilitating the terrorist operation. Brennan was barred from security work. The hospital established new oversight committees, implemented bias training, created channels for staff to report concerns without fear of retaliation. It wasn't enough to fix everything, but it was a start. One evening, Emily found herself back in that parking lot, same spot where she'd been detained. She stood there for a moment, remembering the anger and humiliation, the feeling of being invisible while everyone watched. Then she got in her car, a newer model. Hospital had insisted on providing a vehicle appropriate to her position, and drove away. Not running from the memory, just moving past it. The next morning, she walked into the hospital wearing a different kind of badge. Director-level credentials, clearance for every floor, access to every meeting. Marie met her at the entrance. "Dr. Morrison's asking for you. Emergency consult on a patient with unknown toxin exposure." Emily nodded. "Tell him I'm on my way." As she walked through the halls, people nodded. Said good morning. Stepped aside with respect, not fear. She reached the ER. Doctor. Morrison was there, new head of emergency medicine, brought in after Kessler's arrest. He looked relieved when he saw her. "Harper, thank God. We've got a patient presenting with symptoms I've never seen. Need your eyes on this." Emily moved to the bedside, assessed the patient quickly, recognized the pattern immediately. Organophosphate derivative, industrial exposure, probably accidental. Atropine, 2 milligrams, pralidoxime, 1 gram. And get me a full hazmat team. We need to decontaminate before this spreads. The staff moved instantly. No hesitation, no questions, because they knew she knew what she was talking about. 20 minutes later, the patient was stabilized. The exposure contained, crisis averted. Emily stepped out of the ER, pulling off her gloves. Brooks was waiting in the hallway, arms crossed, looking amused. "Heard you had some excitement." "Just another day. We've got a situation developing. Industrial site, possible chemical spill. Need your assessment before we move in." "Give me 10 minutes to change." Emily headed to her office. Changed from hospital scrubs into tactical gear. Checked her field kit. Fully stocked? Always ready? Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. For a second, her heart jumped. But it wasn't Vera. It was Marie. "Coffee after your shift? Want to hear about the new protocols you helped design?" Emily smiled, typed back. "Sounds good. See you then." She grabbed her kit and headed out. Brooks was waiting in the parking lot. Same lot where this had all started. But Emily wasn't the same person who'd stood here 3 months ago, and she never would be again. "Ready?" Brooks asked. Emily looked at the hospital behind her, at the city beyond, at the work waiting ahead. "Yeah," she said. "Let's go." They drove into the morning light toward whatever crisis needed solving, whatever lives needed saving, whatever impossible choices waited in the hours ahead. And Emily faced it all with her eyes open, her skills acknowledged, her voice heard, not invisible, not dismissed, not powerless. Just Emily Harper, operator, nurse, director, survivor, exactly who she was meant to be. The respect she commanded now wasn't given freely. It was earned through competence, courage, and the refusal to disappear when the world told her she didn't matter. And that made it worth everything, because in the end, the greatest power wasn't in being underestimated, it was in proving everyone wrong.